Hey everybody, welcome back. We got a fun episode today. This is an episode that I've been looking forward to for a couple months now. Trent and I met. How did we meet, man? Titan?
Online, yeah.
Yeah, we met online, but not in the way that sounded like, because that already sounded weird. But yeah, this is going to be a fun story. Trent's got an Air Force Special Operations background, which is kind of cool for me to hear about. I didn't really know a lot about Air Force Special Operations, dude. So before we dive in that, I got a fun little intro for you. So here we go. Picture this. You're 24 years old. You look like you're 12, and you just stepped off a helicopter in Afghanistan with nothing but a name of someone to find. You've had exactly 7 weeks of tactical training, and you're about to spend the next several months with Army Green Berets, where there is a first time for everything, including finding a dead body in a freezer. That's how Trent Seegmiller's story begins. This is the Vanguard Wall, and today we're joined by a retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant Trent Seegmiller, a guy whose dad told him the military was like a good halfway house to adulthood, who walked into an Air Force recruiter's office where the guy had his feet kicked up, didn't give a crap that Trent was there, and then challenged with, "Why should you join the Air Force?" Trent's response was basically, "F you, I'm smart enough to join the Air Force." That's the attitude right there. That's Trent. Trent's the middle kid from a Utah family of 6 boys where the fighting rules were simple. No hits above the neck, because that's when it gets serious. He's a self-proclaimed runt who made up size with his next level aggression, who figured out he could cheat in 3rd grade and just stop doing homework, and who spent 4 years after high school paying colleges to attend their parties. But here's the thing about Trent. He can tell you about losing his roommate Q on the day he was supposed to go home, or about hearing his friend Robbie Miller die in a firefight that would earn Robbie the Medal of Honor. And somehow he'll find a way to make you laugh while also making you understand the weight of what that really means. He's the guy who walked into a mental health office and told the counselor, "I'm going to kill somebody," and somehow turned that moment into a teaching opportunity for others. He's the weather guy who proved his worth by giving a general exactly 1 hour to get helicopters into a valley to extract a trapped team, and nailed it. Today, Trent's co-hosting the One's Ready podcast, breaking the silent professional mold with his trademark humor while helping the next generation understand what Air Force Special Operations really does. He survived 330 plus days a year of deployments, built the entire Special Operations weather pipeline from scratch, and somehow managed to keep his marriage intact through dual military careers and single parenting during COVID, which is a wild story. This is a story about brotherhood, survivor's guilt, and finding your way back from the darkness, told by a guy who can make you laugh about the most serious things while teaching you something important about life, loss, and what it really means to serve. Trent, welcome to the Vanguard Wall, and fair warning to all of our listeners, this dude's about to make you laugh, cry, and probably both at the same time. Sorry, man. I have a lot of fun with these intros, man.
Yeah, it's like you go out of your way to make it uncomfortable.
I think it's fun for our listeners to kind of, get a background. One thing I like about doing these intros is I get to say all the things that all you dudes would never, and females would never say about yourself. So I think that's kind of why I have fun. Before we dive into kind of your life story, dude, tell me about the dead body in the freezer.
Oh, gee. Well, yeah, so it's my first rotation. I get out to Fob Cobra in Afghanistan. And apparently, so like I didn't get like the full story, but there's a dead dude in a freezer there was like, it can be hard for people to understand sometimes, but it's like if we roll someone up and they don't want to play with the Americans, you give them over to the other Afghans, and those people sometimes didn't survive that experience. But then to get the body back or to like do an investigation or any of those other things, like you got to keep the body so that someone else can do something with it. So they threw this dude in the freezer. So it was interesting to show up, it's like all of it, you're in the middle of nowhere. The reality of it hits you that like you're in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, with a bunch of dudes you don't know. Everybody's armed to the teeth, surrounded by Afghans. And then they have a body in the freezer from some dude that didn't survive something. And they all think it's funny. And you're like, yeah, I don't know what's going on right now. Like,
that was your first trip over there, huh?
Yeah.
Like, dude, where am I? Who are these dudes? And what have I gotten myself into?
It gets real weird real fast.
I want to go back to Utah. This episode is brought to you by TitanSARMs.com, your trusted source for research-grade SARMs. These third-party tested compounds are formulated to support research into tissue selective activity, especially in muscle and bone. Titan offers free nationwide shipping, a wide selection in both capsules and droppers, and oversized 90 capsule and 90 ml bottles. Everything is compounded in the USA, raising the bar for quality and reliability. From the lab to your door, Titan delivers transparent data and premium service. That's TitanSarms.com. Use discount code Vanguard10 to save 10% on your order. We do bio interviews here, man. So, you and I spent a lot of time prepping it, but, go back to the earliest, time you can remember your life and kind of walk us through your early years, Trent.
Yeah. So, number 3 of 6, all boys. Childhood was really pretty normal, grew up in Utah, grew up in a Mormon family, good values, good ethics, good role models. My dad is, if anything, he's a workaholic a little bit, but especially as you get older, right? You look back and you're like, and then you talk to other people and it's easy to kind of carry some of that angry teenager angst along with you in your life. But then you look back and I'm like, I'm the most blessed person I know. You know what I mean?
Especially as you get older and have kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to be harsh on your parents, but no, they did the best they could. My dad worked his butt off. My mom stayed home. She's got 6 of us animals to deal with at a time. And it's a good community. And it's funny because a bunch of, maybe not a bunch, but a few of the dudes from my neighborhood, being growing up there is a very competitive environment. And then excellence is something that everybody's striving for. And so I like to tell people one of my best friends growing up, he became Army CI, did a bunch of crazy stuff. One of the guys was a Ranger, one of the guys was a Green Beret, one of the guys was Secret Service. And when you get into the community, you find out that a lot of special ops guys are Mormon, former Mormon, from that that competitive environment where it's just natural to try to take the next step and to see how far you can go.
I'm not Mormon, dude, but I love those dudes. We had a lot of them in my career field, and most of them speak foreign languages. They'll do anything for you. They're naturally stockpile, food and ammo. And yeah, man, it's no. I wasn't shocked when I found out. It just fits your profile because super funny dude, super competitive, special operations. You fit all the bills. You mentioned being the runt of the family. How did that shape kind of your early personality?
Oh, Napoleon complex, anger, trying to prove that you're strong, all this other stuff. You have to make up for it with something, and you have to do something to not only with the other boys in the neighborhood, you have to find out where you rack and stack with everybody, and you don't want to be the bottom ever, right? But also just finding ways to get through it. I give my oldest brother a lot of credit, and I've called him and told him this for a lot of my success, because I learned that pain was just pain, and it's not the end of the world. And he wouldn't hit me maliciously, he wasn't a bad kid, but when we'd scuffle and fight, and my dad bought boxing gloves one year, he knocks me down. You just learn to just get back up and rush him, and eventually he's on the ground laughing because it's so ridiculous that this dude who's 6 foot tall and a grown man is knocking around this little kid, and I just keep getting up and rushing him. And that's how you win the fight, is just overcoming him with ridiculousness and showing him that no matter how hard you hit me, it's not going to matter, and I'm going to come back at you. So just that mindset that no matter what, you can get back up. If you're not unconscious, if you're not dead, it's not the end of the world.
What was the family dynamic like with 6 boys under the roof? What's the spread for you guys, age wise?
Oh, geez.
Is it a big spread, or are you guys all kind of closer?
I'm trying to think. My oldest brother is 5 years older than I am, and my youngest brother is 10 years younger. So
you had a big spread.
Quite the spread. Yeah. So we kind of came in pairs the first 4. So those 2 guys are a year and a half apart, and then there's a 4-year break. And then my brother and my brother 2 years younger than I am, and then another break, and then the last 2 were, I don't know, the last 2. I'm just kidding, guys.
Yeah. How did that experience with your older brother and the boxing gloves, that story you told me, how did that shape your mentality?
I think just knowing that being smaller is not always the worst thing. Fighting wasn't something that was very bad, we were always hitting each other, and just like I said, that understanding that I might be onto something here. You have to be good at something, right? And I tell people that a lot when they're talking about the getting into the community and getting through the training pipelines and all that other stuff. It's you got to be good at something. And it's one of my few skills that I had coming into the military is I can take some punishment, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And not to take everything personal, because like I was the middle child, I was a very emotional young man, and just learning to get over that and using pain as like a way to get past a lot of that stuff, and like to kind of put myself in check. I think it did a lot of good for all those things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember you telling me when we were prep that you hated school but you loved learning. What was going on there, like academically?
School is so stupid. I like learning stuff, and so like I don't know if I'm a narcissist or what, but like I love learning stuff, and I just don't understand why we can't move on to the next thing. Why we have to spend 3 months learning the same thing over and over and over again and doing the homework. It's like, dude, I know it. I know what's in the book. I read the book like the first 3 weeks of class. And so it drove my parents nuts, because they'd go to like parent teacher conferences, and my dad loves to tell this story. He'd be like, the teacher would be like, Trent's like the smartest kid in the class, and he helps everybody else out with their homework, but he doesn't turn in any work. I'm like, because I don't care. Like I want to know it, but I don't know. I think I'm smarter than I am sometimes, I think. And I like to know the stuff, but like, dude, this homework, who cares? Give me the test. I'll ace your test, but like, I don't care about your homework.
I always hated those people in high school, man. It's like, the dudes that got straight A's, but they didn't ever study, and then, just walk into a math class like, man, you SOB, bro. I stayed up all night and I got a B-. You got an A+, and I know for sure you did zero studying.
And I didn't get straight A's because I didn't do any of the work.
How did your parents like handle those academic struggles? Was there just like this constant grind or what?
Yeah, so well, there were a few things that happened. Is I was failing out of junior high. And I'd forged all my teachers' signatures and my parents' signatures for like most of a school year, and which I got pretty good at. I got really good at lying to my parents. I got really good at lying to everybody else. I was forging everybody's signatures, and they caught me, I think, towards the end of that school year. And then another thing happened around the same time as I got caught, like at a drinking party at like the bishop's house, and the bishop's like a priest, like the head guy in your little church. He was out of town, but his son, who's a few years older than I was, threw a party. I was there. So
I can imagine that didn't go over well.
It did not go well. It was, yeah. So it took some licks for that, but, my parents, they did not know what to do. And looking back, like I kind of feel bad, because I was the child that when I was a teenager, like parenting books started showing up in the house. So they were trying. So, they pulled me out of regular school and put me into this like kind of like remedial private school where you go 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, and basically all they do is give you homework and teach you the lessons, and you do most of it on your own. So that was their solution, and that actually worked out fairly well, because it's a lot more linear. I could have like a job, had a lot more time not just sitting in a classroom wanting to gouge my own eyeballs out.
Yeah, and, I struggle with my own kids. I mean, education's super important, but young boys, especially age 11 on up, they were never meant to sit still in a chair for 8 hours a day, period. And so it's this struggle now, our kids need an education, obviously, and I'm not anti-education, but, I think that's why the homeschool movement, I remember when we were growing up, the homeschool kids were kind of weird and whatever, but now it's like, you see the homeschool kids and, they got the freedom, dude. Like, right. They study 2-3 hours a day, and then they get to go, out fishing or whatever. So yeah. And it's funny you talk about forging notes, for all you youngsters out there. That's how I remember, I remember in high school, you go to school, you forge a note, and that's how you got to leave early, and just, you give it to them. And I remember my high school counselor, I think it was like my junior year, he finally figured it out and called my mom. My mom's like, you've missed how many days of school? None of those were approved. And I was also really good at forging signatures. So it was just funny. That's a memory I haven't thought about in a long time. Because
I don't think my parents appreciated how much time I put into learning how to forge everybody's signature.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
I didn't have great handwriting. So again, man, I would like put a piece of paper over hers and sign it. And I got really good at that. Dude, that's hilarious. Growing up in kind of like Mormon Utah, what was the cultural environment like, for your family? Were you guys like diehard religious, or, I try to stay away from religion, but I'm very curious.
No, I mean, we went to church every Sunday. We participated, but my parents were very much, my dad spent 4 years in the Air Force when he was younger. He grew up in Southern Utah. My mom came from Phoenix, Arizona. They met when he was at Luke Air Force Base, and then they got married when he got out. And so he'd seen some of the world, he'd been to Alaska, he'd been to California, and he traveled for his work. And so they were never like, they were never telling us that if you weren't Mormon, you were going to go to hell, because we'd watch movies, and it's like, oh, these like Catholic priests or these other people in these movies that are like heroes and doing all this great stuff. And so it'd be like natural as a kid. You're like, well, but they're not Mormon. So are they going to hell? And my parents would be like, no,
Yeah.
that's not how that works. Like, this is what we believe. We believe it's the way, the true, whatever. But like, there's good people and there's good people. There's a dude that lived a couple of houses down from us, and one of the big things in the Mormon religion is you don't smoke cigarettes, and it's but like, that's just a visible thing, but that doesn't make you like a morally reprehensible person. But it's just something that we didn't do. Where culturally, in like the little valley I grew up in, right, Salt Lake Valley at the time, people would see that and be like, well, that's like, he's like a bad person, obviously, right? My parents were like, no, like, that dude is like the nicest dude in the world. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He doesn't go to our church, so what? Like, but don't treat him different. So like, it gave me a different view than I think a lot of the people that I grew up with had. And I know a lot of people that have, like me, left the Mormon church and have like this like angst about it, and are very angry about it. And I don't have any of that anger. Like, I love my parents. I love everything about the way I grew up.
Awesome.
I love all those people. Just because I don't go to the same church that they do doesn't mean that I'm fighting against it. Like, I'm not still an angry teenager, like fighting against my parents because I don't want to go to the same church as them. Like, if I go stay at their house and they're like, we're going to church, like, I'll go to church. Like, I don't care. Like, it's, like.
Yeah. And I think so many people get wrapped up in their dogma, whatever it is, man.
Yeah.
And I do think there's this movement. Like, obviously I have my own beliefs but I mean, I think for a long time, religion was like this thing where people like battled each other. Like, even within, like, say, Christianity, you have all these different sects, of, Methodists and Baptists, and, it's got to be our way. And I think that's kind of, to your point, that some of that pushed me away when I was younger, and then I came back to find my faith later on. But yeah, man, but I'm big on live, let live, learn from everybody, and we're all connected, we're all the same, bro. Yeah, so that's a cool point, and that's cool to hear that, because I have heard stories about people getting excommunicated from their families, and as a father now, I couldn't imagine, like, just because my kids believe something different, that, what I mean, you don't talk to them anymore. But that's a thing, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I've had a family member ask me about it too, and he'd be like, well, like, how come you don't do this and all this? And I'm like, bro, I'm trying to, like, the red parts of the Bible, that where, like, the Jesus was talking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to master that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about, like, how you do all the little rituals. I'm worried about, like, how do I become a better person? Like, how do I treat other people better? How do I get to the place where I can be a good human being? And then if we all get there, we can fight about dogma after that.
I love that, man. That's such a great point. So you kind of go through high school, and I remember you telling me in our prep, man, you were kind of wandering. You graduate high school, early 99, but you didn't join the military till 2003. Walk us through kind of those 4 years of paying colleges to attend their parties.
So went to like a community college, or signed up for it, went to a few classes, went to parties, hung out with my friends. So I graduated a year early. So like, the private school was kind of cool, because you walk into your the principal's office at the beginning of a year, and it was my junior year, and I go, hey, I want to graduate this year. And they say, cool, look, you can't miss any assignments. It's pass or fail on all your assignments. You have to do like a thesis, and you have to do like the service work before you can graduate. But I think that was a precursor to loving the military way of doing things. It's very linear. It's like, no, this is what you have to do to get the thing that you want. If you want to get out of here a year early, that's a very clear linear progression towards your goal, right? And I think that's what was missing for a lot of my school stuff earlier. So anyway, my senior year of high school, I'd already graduated. So I was hanging out with my buddies that were still in high school, going to the football games, doing all the fun stuff, but not really, I had no idea what to do with my life. It's just, there wasn't like, I wasn't going to get a scholarship. I wasn't an athlete. I'd played soccer when I was younger, but I hurt myself a little bit and kind of fallen away from that. So like, what do you do? Like, I wasn't passionate about anything. And I was a young man full of testosterone and all this other stuff, and just chasing chasing those dopamine hits and whatever else I thought I wanted, until eventually I made enough mistakes and they compounded to burn my life down to the ground, to humble me a little bit, to actually think that joining the military might be an okay thing.
When you say like you made some mistakes and like kind of burn yourself to the ground and that opened that door, what was that? Or I mean, you don't have to deep dive.
Yeah, no, just financial, like, you know, you're living in these places and you get a bunch of jobs. I had a pile of jobs before I joined. Like, I sold cars, I worked at a watch store, I worked for a plumbing company. You know, I worked at a data collection center. I worked at a credit card company doing collections. I did all the things, right? Yeah. Like, and you start to see it, and it becomes clear whether it's your conscious brain or your subconscious brain, but it's like you start seeing guys that are like 35, 40 years old that are still doing that job, and they make a decent living at it. But like, is that what I want?
Yeah. Is there more to this life?
Yeah. And it's like, you start going to parties with these dudes. Like when I was selling cars, right? Like, there's the dudes doing some drugs, and then you go to these parties, and there's, you know, there's things, and it's like, is this it? Like, this is all you guys do? And they're all like divorced, or, you know, the majority of them. And it's just like, I don't want to do this.
And I don't know if you remember the exact, but like, what was the defining moment? And the reason why I ask you this is I do talk to a lot of young men, and I know you do too, right? About the military, and, you know, some guys are I want to wait for a couple of years and do this. And, you know, I went straight in after high school. And do you think it was kind of like your sum total of doing all these things and getting experience to realize like, man, I really want to do this? Or if you had to go back in time, which is never a luxury that we'll ever get. So, but you know, this is going to go out to a broader audience.
Probably.
Like, would you have like joined earlier?
Maybe. So my dad did not enjoy his time in the Air Force. He did well, but he didn't like being enlisted. And his thing was always, hey, if you're going to go in the military, you got to be officers. And I'm like, I don't want to go to college, dude. You know, so like the military, and he never really talked about it when we were younger either, other than that. And so it was never really an option, you know, and I was pretty anti-government anyway. Everybody's like, oh, you should be liberal when you're younger. I was not at all. But, you know, like, it was just like my older brother ended up joining, and it started becoming like a conversation in our family. And like, it kind of just like the you know, and my buddy that was in the Army, he joined right out of high school. And so it kind of like gets you there slowly but surely. You know, I loved all the war movies. I was drawn towards the military. But I was like, oh, I can't join the military until I found myself in a place where it's like, man, like, I need money. I don't want to keep doing these jobs. What am I doing with my life? You know, and I'm not old. I'm like 20 years old, but I'm not stupid. I can see where all the paths that I've been on lead to. And finally, it was just like, my dad was like, dude, maybe it's not the worst idea. Obviously, he was concerned to get to that point where he recommended it. But my older brother, he was actually, he was a cop in the Air Force. And it was cool because when I went to basic training, like, he was still in his tech training on that base. And we go to the church on Sundays, and we'd meet up together. And so it was cool. So like, he kind of paved that path for me. And then my dad was like, hey, man, this isn't actually the worst thing in the world. And he was like, of all my sons, because there were 3 of us that ended up in the Air Force, he's like, Trent, you were the one that I was like, he's gonna struggle. But then I'm the one that did 20 years, and I fell into something that I really enjoyed. And he's like, this is the weirdest thing ever, but
and you know, it's funny. I think, you know, and you're a father too. Like, sometimes you have this vision for your kid of what you think they should do, not because you want them to go in your path, but you think you know them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they do something. You're like, man, I didn't see that coming.
Right? Yeah.
But the military is, I mean, it's the biggest fraternity in my opinion in the world. And, you know, I can't tell you how many grown men are, you know, you hear dudes in their 40s like, you know, my only regret is that I didn't join. I think deep down and like, if you dive into masculinity, man, that, you know, for thousands of years, man, it was a warrior culture. You had to fight for your food and fight warring clans. And now, bro, you just got to fight your way in the grocery store to get, you know, life has gotten easy. And I think the military really helps, and it's not for everybody, but, you know, for those like struggling men and women, but especially men, like, it's like, if they don't have a plan, like, cause I know for sure if I would have gone to college straight out of high school, I would have burned through whatever money, whether it was my money, my parents' money, got F's, and, you know, it would have just been a waste of time. So
would have been fun though.
Yeah, it would have been a lot of fun, dude. Yeah, I go to college now and it's not fun.
Yeah.
Should have gone earlier. That's cool, man. Thanks for kind of, you know, walking us through that thought process. So, how did it feel to hear your dad initially give you permission to like go as an enlisted dude? I mean, not permission, but you know what I mean? You always want most people want their parents, blessings or at least support.
Yeah. I mean, I love my dad. He's the hardest working dude in the world. So like, to get his blessing to like, to know that he thought it was a good idea, like it's a good idea. So, I was going to be a Marine. And cause like, I think I was searching for that, like that crucible man, like I'm a man now event that we don't really have in our culture anymore. But like, you walk into the Marines, and I told you the story, and they're all like, "Hey brother, do you want to be a warrior? Do you want to pull throats out?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then I was driving past the Air Force recruiter's office, and I called my older brother just like randomly, cause I looked at where he'd signed up on my way to sign my paperwork with the Marines. And I just called him, and I was like, "Man, why'd you join the Air Force?" And he's like, "Dude, just go in and talk to him." So that's when I walked in, and the dude had his feet kicked up on the desk, and like I had to get his attention. And it's like, it's so, like the Marines, like 4 dudes will like rush you if you get close to that door. The Air Force guy's like, "What's up, bro?" Like once I got his attention, it's like, I did not know what to do. Like I was at a loss for words. I'm like, this is the military, which of course, like I still kind of like have these like ideas that I'm above such things, but I'll go be a Marine because at least they do hard things. And then why should I join the Air Force? And he's like, "I don't know. Why should you join the Air Force?" And I remember just kind of like stepping back and sitting down. Like there was like a chair, and I was like, "I could do this.
Yeah.
Like, you think I can do this?" Like, so.
No, definitely do it. Howdy doody.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was I don't know if it was a strategy, but it was 2003. The Air Force was not, and the Air Force typically doesn't struggle with like general recruiting. So it's like, he doesn't care. He's already met his goals and all this other stuff. And unless he finds like some, there's the career fields that are difficult to recruit for. So until you take the tests and you might be one of those like special people that he needs, he couldn't care less that you're in his office.
And that's the Air Force, man, because they meet they don't have a problem for the most part meeting recruiting retention goals, because everybody's, everybody, especially those of us who serve, know how, I think all of us, we hate on the Air Force because a lot of us wish we had joined the Air Force.
Yeah.
It's the nicest. I remember Air Force dude telling me, "Yeah, we don't call it a chow hall. We call it a dining facility." Or, there was all these like words. Like, you go in an Air Force chow, it's like you feel like you're at a restaurant. And
yeah, we stay at dorms.
Yeah, dude. I always think that's funny, man. So you enlisted as a linguist?
Yep.
Okay.
So I took the ASVAB, and he was like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "You want to take the D lab?" I'm like, "Sure." And so I took the D lab. I scored just high enough to be a linguist. Like I'm not like a language, whatever. But I was going to be a linguist, got to basic training. They actually did my background check stuff, and they were like, "No." And whether it was me not telling my recruiter enough, or my recruiter not really writing down everything, or not wanting to know because he wanted that on his thing, because linguists aren't always easy to recruit. They were like, "So here are your 5 options." They gave me 5 options to retrain into or whatever, and weather was one of them. And I was like, well, weather sounds interesting, and it probably changes all the time, and so that's how I ended up becoming a weather guy.
So when were you actually in basic training when you found out that they weren't gonna let you be a linguist?
Yeah.
Oh God.
But like it's looking back, right? So I still have the young man ego narcissism thing. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go be a linguist, airborne cryptologic, which thank goodness that didn't work out for me, because I would have been miserable. But it sounds cool. You get to go to SEER school, and that's kind of what started like the idea of doing stuff like that too, because I wanted to be a Marine before that. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds hard. But then having to call back home and be like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be a linguist, I'm gonna be a weather guy, but to help, I needed such high doses of humility at the time to set me up for success later on, that it ended up being a very positive thing for me, because that's what I needed.
Yeah, no, great point. I forgot to ask you, I try to do with all our older guests, where were you at 9/11? Do you remember that day at all?
Yeah, I had the day off of work. My brother comes into my room, and he was like, "They're flying planes in the World Trade Center." And I was like, "What? Okay, cool. Well, it'll probably be on the news all day." So it didn't like register in my head. To me, it was like a Cessna or something, or a plane crashed. Then I woke up when I saw the news, and I'm like, well, crap. And like I said, I was pretty anti-government dude. So I went over to my girlfriend's house, and she's crying, and I was like, we don't know anybody in New York. And I'm like, they're just going to use this to take away our guns, which some other stuff and things. But yeah, like I remember.
Did like as GWAT started kicking off and then you start going, you know, towards the military route, did it become real to you, man? I mean, did you know people that had been deployed? I mean, you had family members in the military, and you know, I know Utah, like there's a lot of dudes that go in the military. Like,
Yeah, so like it starts to become real. One of our neighbors, I forget when we heard about it, but he was he ended up being a Green Beret at like the 20th group or whatever out there. Maybe it's 19th group out there. I can't ever remember. But like he got a Bronze Star in Afghanistan in the very early days. And it's like, oh crap. And you start hearing about like some of the fratricide incidents. And it's like, dang, things are really going south. And they start talking about Iraq. And you're like, why are we going to Iraq? You know, and it's always two sides of me. It's like, so like these things start building up where like there's a need inside of me to want to go do these things, you know, for and with my country, and to be out there with those fellas and see if I can be of value, but also like not agreeing with all the reasons why we're doing everything.
yeah. So you get to Air Force, you get to basic training, and you know, you end up switching schools. How was basic training for you? Well, I always want, you're our first Air Force guy in here, so we want to hear some good Air Force basic training stories.
It was pretty silly. I got lucky. I think my drill instructors, my MTIs, were actually pretty cool guys. Because there comes a time when you actually start looking around, and
Yeah.
a little closer, and you see some of the other drill instructors, and there's, you know, they're not all fit. They're not whatever. Their voices don't carry very well, and all this other stuff. So like I remember looking at my drill instructor and being like, he was like an Air Force cop, and he'd done some pretty cool things, and so at least that part of the experience was good, and he was a pretty intense person. But it's not hard. You know, there wasn't enough PT, a lot of focus on folding things into squares and shaving socks and all the other stuff. And dealing with, the hardest part is just dealing with the other kids that are straight out of high school that joined the Air Force. And yeah, it wasn't like a big, I was waiting to join the military still.
Yeah. So you're in basic and they tell you you're gonna be a weatherman. Did you know anything about it, or was that just the best?
No.
Like, was that the best option out of crappy choices?
Yeah, there was like a few maintenance jobs. There was like one of them was like an optometrist assistant or something, where I'm like, I could have got like my doctorate degree sitting there at that desk working 9 to 5s, which sounds nice, but also I would have been miserable and bored. And there was some like you know, stealth avionics and stuff, because I had a decent ASVAB score, so I could have done whatever. But I was like, weather sounds challenging and sounds like it changes all the time and blah blah blah. And that was it. Like that was it. And so I had to sign up for something. I wasn't going home.
Yeah.
So
Burn the boats.
Oh jeez. Yeah.
Dude, tell me about weather school. I mean, I know we laugh and we joke. I think for those people that are listening, that have probably heard some of our other podcasts too, you know, you guys hear all these 160 helicopters flying and Air Force dropping bombs and all this stuff. Like, people don't realize you know, the weather plays a massive role in operations. You just never hear about it, right?
Yeah. Oh, you hope you never hear about it.
Yeah.
I mean, weather school was long. It wasn't that academically difficult. There are some concepts that are difficult to grasp sometimes, but it's like 7 months long. And so it's just the grind, and it's PowerPoints and PowerPoints and PowerPoints. You're marching to school every day, and it's the Air Force, so it's not like difficult, and the PT is not hard enough. And it's just, you know, I'm a 21-year-old dude, you know, with a bunch of other folks around the same age. So, you know, you party and you do all these other things, but that's when I first got the briefing about SOWT, the Special Operations Weather, because, you know, like, you go to basic training and you're searching, and like you do the PT, and there's, you know, whatever. And then you go to tech school, and I remember seeing the combat control trainings. Actually, we'd be like in the weather schoolhouse. There's like these big windows in the break rooms, and we see these dudes like running with logs, and everybody's like, "Oh man, sucks to be them." And like I'd make fun too, but like in the back of your brain, you're like, "Could I do that? You know, could I do something like that?" And I didn't know special operations weather existed until like halfway through tech school. And they're like, everybody down in the conference room, we got a briefing, and they're like, do you want to jump out of planes and get shot at and also do weather? And you're starting to get like gain a better picture of what being a weather, conventional Air Force weather guy means, which is a lot of sitting in an office, giving out dash ones to pilots, and just monitoring weather, which is fine. But I'm like, if I can jump out of planes and get shot at and do weather stuff, that sounds way better than sitting in an office. And so it was just a fortuitous thing. And they're like, this is what you got to do it. And I'm like, okay.
I remember when you first told me, when I knew you got a special operations background, and I had, perused like the One's Ready stuff. And, but when you first told me like you're a weatherman, all I could think of is like the news guy, and I feel like I used to joke with my wife, because she's like a weather Nazi. She's always watching the weather. And so in my mind, I'm just like, the weather dudes on the news have the easiest job, because as long as you say there's a 10% chance of rain, you're always covered, bro. So initially, that was like where my brain, when you're like a weather dude, I'm like, you just stand around and tell the pilots, hey, there's 10% chance of rain. And then you like told me all the, the specifics, and I was like, oh, snap.
Yeah, I mean, the military weather stuff is a little bit different, and some of it is very specific to the flight plans, and you're in charge of like you're within 5 miles of your base, all the weather that's happening there, and people actually get pretty good at it. But I mean, you're still a weather guy.
Yeah. You told me something too that was super interesting. So you're at weather school, I think, is, if I remember right, and Hurricane Katrina hits while you're in weather school. So you were literally kind of like living through the weather event that you were training to forecast. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so that was observing school. So like to become special operations weather, you had to get through weather school. You have to spend like a year and a half as a regular weather person, right? Learning your trade. And then you apply to go into follow-on training. So the first school is forecasting school. The follow-on school was observing school. And it was back at the same place at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. So yeah, while I was back at observing school, Katrina hit. And it was a disaster. They were not ready for it. We spent, 4.5, 5 days in these old buildings with, they start giving people MREs. The AC goes out. Everything is off. There's like families in there. You can't flush the toilets anymore. You're not supposed to heat up the MREs, but people are doing it anyway because of, and it's just gas and it smells bad, and it was awful. So that was actually a really good experience, because when I went to SEER school after that, and like, I'm in like this little box, but it's like, it's fresh cut pine or whatever it was. And it's nice and cold and dry, and I'm by myself. I'm like, this is incredible.
I needed some alone time.
Yeah, this is just so much better than Katrina.
Yeah, it's I one of the things I keep thinking, as you talk, is just like the mentality, right? I really think the mind is always stronger than the body. People don't realize that. I've had to, and you've seen it, right? Guy blows out his knee and still, finishes the mission, or even SEER school, and they shove you in the box for however long, and it's miserable. But I think, as long as the mind doesn't go before David Goggins has built a whole platform on just slaughtering himself. Yeah. And, the guy, but he's put himself through, and lots of people, and the special operations community in and of itself, the training, Rangers, Air Force, everybody, especially in the special operations community, and all the things that you put your body through. It's like, your body will go way farther than you think it will, as long as your mind doesn't quit. So you've touched on that a couple points, and I thought that was worth, mentioning. Talk to me about, I think when we're in the prep at some point, when those guys with the gray berets came and asked, do you want to jump out of planes, get shot at, and do the weather? What made you like immediately say yes? Was it just like, hey man, or you felt like you were at that point where you just know you were going to need more? You just like weren't feeling like you were getting the challenges that you needed?
Yeah, I mean, and when you do your PT, you look around, and I'm not like the most physical guy in the world, but I can run, I can do cows. Yeah, and I didn't blend in with everybody else, and so like it made sense that like, hey, I have this physical capability. I like to do those types of things. This dude shows up in his BDUs, and they're all starched and pretty. His boots are like mirrors. He's got a gray beret that looks great. His name was Mario, and you're just like, like when you just, I'm a pretty intuitive person, I think, and I don't question things a lot when it feels right. And I know I don't come across as like a big feelings guy, but when you feel drawn to something and you just know you're supposed to say yes, I was just like, this is it. Like you just know, and you can spend the rest of your life fighting that feeling, and end up wherever you end up and regret it probably. But I'm not into fighting that. If something is like a yes, I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So you get through weather school, you get through like, your following observation, and then you go into the SOWT program. So special operations weather technician. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is there a pipeline, like a tryout for that or what?
No, there should have been.
Is that what you built one?
Yeah. So at the time, I know the when I was at Shaw Air Force Base, the SOWT guys came out and visited because they were going on like a recruiting tour, and they gave me a PT test, and they're like, okay, like we think that you could do this, but like that's it. You sign up for it, and you go to your observing school, you go to the SEER school, and water survival, and then airborne, and then you get an assignment. And I was still talking to that guy that gave the briefing at when I was at tech school. And he was getting ready for Ranger School, and he barely answered my emails. And looking back, the questions I was asking him were super annoying. And I was using all the wrong words and all this other stuff because I had no idea how it all worked. But he gave me a really good piece of advice. So like in the weather community, there are like airborne weather folks that are with the 82nd Airborne, which is fine, but they fall under Air Combat Command. And then there's the rest of us that supported, especially the USASOC mission at the time. And they fall under AFSOC. He's like, bro, whatever you do, make sure you go AFSOC.
So AFSOC for all you guys is Air Force Special Operations Command. Air Force has their own like special operations, not regiment, but I don't know, like command. It's combatant command, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So like he gave me that advice, and I have no idea what the difference is and wouldn't have known. So I went to my E9, and she was super cool about everything. Another thing that just worked out in my favor. And she's like, where do you want to go? And of course, I want to go to like Fort Carson, and I want to go to Washington State. And she's like, yeah, everybody wants to go there. And I think originally I was like supposed to go to Fort Campbell for the 5th group guys, but the Bragg guys snagged me to support 3rd and 7th group. So you go through like airborne and SEER, and it's not a lot. And then you show up at your detachment, and you're like, hey guys, I'm the new guy.
Like the anchor man.
Yeah. And so like, you go through like your cherry ceremony and all that other stuff, but like it was very
Your what ceremony?
Like your cherry ceremony.
I don't.
So like,
yeah. Hazing, the new guy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hazing, it's just brotherly love.
Oh, my bad. We'll just beep that out.
We can say hazing, it's fine. But like there wasn't like a real pipeline, there was no selection course. It was very ad hoc. Some of the guys that got there, because the standards were, so low to get in, some of the guys shouldn't have been, special operations or whatever. And so there were guys that chased the training and really like got themselves to the level of training that they needed to be to really blend into that community. And some guys didn't. And so it was a huge problem in our career field at the time. I would say at least 50% of the guys wouldn't have made it through like a pretty easy selection course. And so there was always this like weird thing going on with us. So like after a while, at first you're like, you deploy and guys are like, oh, you guys are worthless. And then, you grow in your career and you're like, well, who are you deployed with? And they tell you, you're like, that makes sense, and you don't want to be that guy, but that's just the reality. We didn't have a selection process. We didn't have all that other stuff. We had a cherry ceremonies, but like we can't kick a guy out. He'd already PCS'd to us. So like we would know if he was going to go to like the choice deployments or not. But I can't take his beret away. Yeah.
So, can you just kind of explain for our listeners, like what a special operations weather technician does? Like,
Not really. I'm just kidding.
It's classified.
So we kind of built out from the last iteration of SOWT, built out from the 160th and then went to the USASOC architecture. So under the 160th, it's very much just being a weather guy, but being, a one deep shop, working insane hours and working with those guys. At the special forces groups, you would support their training events, you deploy with them. Like when you're deployed out there at the FOB, so like weather works at all levels of planning, right? Strategic down to tactical. And so it's kind of weird because you'd give your team the tactical considerations, but then you still have to talk to the boss back in the rear because he's doing all the future planning. And so that there's strategic things that he needs to know, like you need to talk about snow melt, you need to talk about, the rivers, you need to talk about all the other things that are going to lead to the next big missions. And so it's funny because at the tactical level, they'll be like, well, like, you haven't given us anything worthwhile in a while, in some time. And it's like, yeah, but I'm also building climatology data for this winter or next spring or whatever, for the next, phase of what we're going to be doing. So you have to make yourself useful, just like anybody else. And I think this is one of the things that was surprising to me when I first deployed is, man, if you're a Green Beret and you're a Charlie, that doesn't mean that you're just a Charlie. You're out there unloading helicopters. You're helping, if we're doing a med cap or we're doing any of this other stuff with the locals, you're out there helping to triage and do all the things. You're helping the intel guys, you're helping the SOWT guys, you're helping the PsyOps guys, you're helping everybody do everything that they need to do until it's time for you to, do your specialty, right? You got to be a team guy, and then you have a specialty on top of that. And with us, it worked a lot the same way. So we'd have like a JTAC with us, and I work with them a lot to make sure that everything was copacetic for, mission planning and all this other stuff. But, you just throw yourself in there and help out where you can, tell the PsyOps guys the forecast so they can put it out on their radio to the farmers in the area. You tell the SOWT guys when a dust storm is coming so they can take their, secret squirrel equipment down because it's really sensitive to static electricity. And you give your guys drop wins when they're dropping in our supplies that the parachutes never opened, if it was something that we wanted, and you watch all the good food slam into the ground and go everywhere.
And it'd be while the cots all landed perfectly and nobody needed cots.
It was
yeah, and I think again, man, what you're giving to is a much greater life lesson in making yourself useful. And that can transition into businesses, business teams, your personal life, and just because you have this thing, for you it was weather, and you go to this team, if you want to be, not only that, I would imagine you carried that weight of trying to, like you're a special operations weather dude, but you're still a good soldier and you're really, trying to set that standard for your replacement who's going to replace me, and if you're a shitbag and you don't do anything, the team's not going to want to take you anywhere, much less have anything to do with you. Yep. But you're also setting the standard, for your career field too. And I've really noticed, especially in Air Force operations, now that I've really started to learn, and I have some other guests coming on, like you guys really deploy as singletons. You know what I mean? Like you guys get farmed out to all the different groups, to whether it's, special forces and Navy, SEALs and all that. You guys get deployed in onesie. So you really do have to, if you want to be valued and at least, be a part of the team, you really got to be more than just that one thing.
Oh yeah. And then you got to be we had a commander that called us all chameleons. He's like, because you got to get in there, and you get in there, you assess the team dynamic, like where do I provide value? We all have our personalities, but if you can't work with a random team, you can't do your job. And then one of the weird things too is like when you go home, like if an ODA deploys to a FOB and then they all go home, they all go back to the same team room and they talk about it for the next whatever year and a half before they deploy again. And people come and go off those ODAs as well, but we go back and like, if you were another Air Force guy, you weren't with me, I wasn't with you. Like we'd keep track of each other on like Merc chat and the radios and all that other stuff, but there's not very much like actual shared experience in the community because of that singleton mentality. So it breeds kind of a different type of person.
My career field was the same. So that definitely makes sense to me. So let's, your first deployment, Afghanistan, you didn't get a chance. Like, I think you got farmed out to an ODA. Like you didn't get to train up with these guys or anything.
No.
I love your story, man. Will you walk us through that? You basically showing up in Afghanistan solo, catching a ride off like with a random. This is a pretty good story you're telling me. I thought it would be good to put it on here.
Yeah. So back, like I got 7 weeks of tactical training. I get to brag, chair ceremony, all the things. I go to Fort Campbell for 6 weeks of training. I go to Rifles Only for a 1 week shooting course, which Rifles Only is fantastic. I still love them. And then we get back to our unit, and within 2 weeks, our lieutenant walks out of his office and he's like, "Hey, like we knew one of our guys had been shot in the calf, and we needed to replace him. So he's like, technically you're trained, so you got to go." And I'm like, okay. And so it all happened, in my mind, it happened very fast because it was my first time, right? So I go over to Pope Air Force Base to get my orders. I come back, there's a pile of stuff on my desk. It was like the end of the day, so everybody had left. But like the guys had gone through all the gear that I'd just been issued, and I had no idea how to use most of it. They're like, this is the stuff that you need to take, pack all this up. Don't take more than what you can carry because you're by yourself. So you can't, and we weren't packing out ISUs and all that other stuff. So it's like, hey, this is how much you can carry. This is what you need to take. So they put me on a plane. Some dude wrote in my book a name of a guy at a SOWT at a Bagram Air Base. I don't know what a SOWT is. I don't know. And because it's a whole nother language. And I've only been there a few,
Well, and you've even thrown out some acronyms just as we talking, and I get banged every now and then by, people listen to podcasts like, man, you guys speak your own military language. You're talking about packing out an ISU, like just for the listeners, like normally when a unit deploys or a team deploys, they pack a big old Connex box with everything that they're going to need. And all that they pack this whole Connex box, and then the Connex box gets shipped out, arrives at the base, team unloads the Connex box. But for you guys that are solo, there's no Connex box. So everything that you need, equipment, clothes, everything's got to either go in your bed. You got to be able to, because getting from America to Afghanistan, especially when you're flying solo, then you get in country, you got to bounce.
Yeah.
So I'll let you tell a story, but I just wanted to kind of give that.
Yeah. So I had my body bag, my ruck, and I think my weapons case, and maybe one other backpack. So they give me a plane ticket. I take the rotator out of Baltimore. I have a name in my book of something, and I have no idea where I'm going. I've never heard of these places before. So we stop in Al Udeid, and I'd made friends. I don't even know how I made friends with some random dude. And he was like, hey, I'm like a sensor operator on an AC-130, and they're sending a bird just to pick me up. He's like, do you want to go with me? And I'm like, okay. And I have no idea how far the deed is from Bagram. And I'm like, is this a short flight? Is this a long flight? I have no idea. So I just like throw all my stuff in this plane. I'm pretty sure I didn't check out of the deed. And so I have no idea if, there's always the threat that if you don't check out and do all their procedures, you're going to get kicked out of country for 5 years. You can't come back. And everybody's like, oh no, I can't come back for 5 years. Like, that sounds awesome.
Just some desert island that I've never wanted to be at to begin with.
Right. So I just grabbed my stuff, and this bird showed up, and him and I were the only people in the back of the C-130. And all my C-130 experiences are like at this point, 10 jumps I had. And so we're not like going up to 30,000 feet and flying long periods of time. So I froze my butt off all the way to Bagram, and I don't know how long it took, but it took a really long time. And we get off the bird, and that dude like fist bump, like, later, bro. I never saw that dude again. I have no idea who that person is. But he got me into country a lot faster than the next rotator would have gotten me there. And I get off the bird, and I'm just like, I'm in Afghanistan. I have no idea what's going on. And some dude with a beard kind of was like wandering around. He looked at me. He's like, you a weather guy? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you need to go to like Camp Vance? I was like, I think so. He's like, dude, the other guy I was supposed to pick up didn't show up. Hop in my truck. And I'm like, okay.
There was another weather guy?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, but like, I think another like Green Beret was supposed to come in. And so like this random bearded dude happened to be there at the right time. I hop in his truck. We got a speeding ticket on the way back to Vance, which was also weird.
You guys in Kandahar?
Bagram.
You got a speeding ticket?
Dude.
Oh,
so like, it's how surreal it is, like your first deployment. And so like you show up on this base, which is like a small town, but you're like, I'm going to
I'm at war.
Yeah. And then like you get a speeding ticket, and then like the cops giving him like a hard time. I'm like, what? Like we're getting speeding tickets?
My brain cannot process the stupidity that's happening right now.
But we get on Vance, and he shows his badge, and we get on there, and he's like, finally, like we can just be normal people here. And then got to the siege of SOWT, and they're like, hey, we're sending you out to Kandahar. And so like, I was just like, kind of like hitchhiked my way into country by myself. And then they got me on a bird. Had to take two tries to get into Kandahar because of weather. I've never flown that close to the ground before. That pilot was insane. And for people that know, I don't know, it's the little like white private jet looking planes, like a little needle.
It's like a caravan, I think.
Yeah. And it was like a contract pilot. So like, I don't know why he wanted to go to Kandahar so bad, but the second day that we attempted it, like we were, it looked like the wing was about to hit the stuff on the airfield because he was getting so low to line up his approach. Like that dude really wanted to land. And I was like, I'm going to die in a plane crash before I even get to deploy. But yeah, got there, linked up with the guys. I stayed there for a while because you have to have a weather guy at the jock, and you have to have a weather guy forward. Otherwise it doesn't work. So the guy at the jock, he was about to rip out. And he's funny because he was a former Ranger instructor who was now a guard special operations weather guy. And so this dude was huge, jacked, tan, all the things, former Ranger instructor. So half the guys in the jock had been his Ranger students because like all the officers go to Ranger school no matter what. And so he's like this giant weather guy, and then I show up. I still look like I'm 12 years old, and I'm the new weather guy at the jock for a while. But until my backfield comes and then pushes me forward, so it was just all the weird stuff.
What was it like processing? You get to the jock and like you're new, you've done through all this training, but you know, you and I were talking last night, like you can go through a year of training, and then as soon as you go to combat, like some of that training stuff doesn't always translate, or, you know, because there's stuff you do when you're in the training box and not all of that stuff, you know what I mean? It's a little bit different when you finally get there. So like, what was that? Did you have a bunch of tasks you had to do? Were they expecting a lot out of you, or?
Not really. I mean, we did, I while I was there, I did some weather stuff. You know, got familiar with the area, which was really good because I got to actually look at the map and figure out where everything was and like the weather patterns and all that other crap. That dude gave me a good turnover. First night I was there was a rocket attack, and I remember thinking, I was like, it does sound just like the movies. Hearing that thing come in and hit the ground, and I was like, so that was kind of cool because my first night ever in Kandahar, there was a rocket attack where they actually hit the base. The only casualty was some kid was like over on the boardwalk where the restaurants were, and he sprained his ankle when he dove for cover. But you just start figuring it out. I remember my replacement came in, and I'd made friends with a few of the Green Berets that were there because like they have to send their guys back for the whatever they were doing there to manage everything at the jock. And I told one of the guys, I'm like, yeah, they're pushing me out to Cobra. And we'd had a combat controller out there while I was there that got killed, and a bunch of other stuff that had happened. And I remember the guy just looked at me and he was like, bro, like, keep your head down. And, you know, he's a Green Beret. He's been on multiple deployments. And I'm like, oh, crap. And then there's this other Air Force dude that had just died before I go out there. So I ended up going out there with another combat controller that was replacing him. And they hadn't had a weather guy for a while. And I was just like, when the reality hits you, it was terrifying, you know? And then, like you said, you get there, you get to the fob, and nothing is like training. Nothing. You know, it's everything's different. It's like, where do I sleep? Like, no one knows. No one cares. Like,
and it's not like there's a person with a clipboard. Hey, you're here. You're going to be getting this bunk here. Cause that's what it is in base training. You know, here's your clothes, here's your bunk, here's this. And like, you get there and it's like, yeah, bro, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. But even like deploying with the 160th, it's very like organized. You know where you're going. You're assigned a room when you get to a place, or you find a room or whatever. But you know, you go to a fob and you get off the helicopter, guys are like, who are you? And you know, you're like, I'm the weather guy. And they're like, okay. And they just like wander off. And you're like, I have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you out there, I know I have a huge listener base that's military, but I know, you know, for those of you that aren't in the military, a FOB's a forward operating base. So think of like, think of, you know, you got like a big base like Bagram and Kandahar were really big military bases, almost like military bases you'd find in the States.
Yep.
But you go to FOB and that's like a straight up combat outpost like you see in the movies. And, you know, it's very Spartan. It's not near as many people, and, you know, everybody's pulling multiple jobs because you still got to, you know, guard the base, and guys are going out doing, you know, whether it's village stability or, you know, direct action raids or a mix, or, you know, it's definitely very different the farther you get away from the flagpole, especially in the special operations community. When you're talking about, you know, ODAs and teams doing VSO or, was it third group you were supporting on that trip?
Yep. So 7th group had ripped out, and then I think it was a third group.
So how was it like initially kind of finding your place on that team and fitting in?
So there were 2 teams out there. So Cobra was a pretty hot base at the time.
And this is this 06 when?
Yep.
Okay.
So we had 2 teams, but we only had 1 officer because the other officer had gotten his arm blown off previously. And then the 2 team sergeants, it was funny because the 2 team sergeants, if you were going to write a comedy about 2 teams and their team sergeants, these 2 guys would be it. There was Hal, that was like 6'3", 6'4", giant of a man, deep voice, hated everybody, but also like a good dude, but like took everything super seriously. And you look at him and he looks like Santa Claus. But you can also watch this dude push walls over. Like just your quintessential Green Beret team sergeant. Mm-hmm. And then the other guy, Larry was what, 5'5", 5'6", and he would say stuff like, I'll go get jiggy with those guys. We call him the combat gnome. Very personable, like great dude. But yes, we had 2 team sergeants. We had 1 captain who I don't think either one of the team sergeants really liked. And then you have 2 ODAs. So that's another thing, is like trying to figure out, like, I got 2 ODAs, I got SOWT dudes, I have PsyOps dudes, I have, yeah. And we had the artillery guys, we had 105s out there. And so it's just trying to figure out who is what, and then also figuring out the Green Beret architecture. I think I knew what a Delta was, but I'm like, what is a Charlie? What is a Bravo? You know, what is a Fox? The first time you meet a Fox, you're like, I never heard of that. And
did you ask him what does the Fox say?
I think that was pre what does the Fox say?
It's a total dad joke, sorry.
But you just learn, and then you try to provide value. You go out to the range, you shoot with the guys. Getting in with the medical guys was always my easiest in, because we would do little med caps and all this other stuff, and I go help them out. And the I don't know, the 18 Deltas were always pretty easy to get along with. They always had a lot of stuff going on, helping them with surgeries. I remember the first time I helped one of those guys out, just basically holding a dude down and giving him what he needed. But some local showed up and was like, "Oh, something happened to me." And obviously we had launched some I think we shot the howitzers like the day before, an airstrike. And this dude had obviously been injured. He waited 2 days and he came over to get surgery, which is another weird thing. You're like, so like this dude is our enemy, but then he comes to us to save, and he makes up a story. He knows that we have to help him. But he was a drug addict. So you give him morphine and he doesn't pass out. And the Delta's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to do surgery. So he's like, I can't give him anymore. It'll kill him. But
what kind of surgery was it?
I think his face was all jacked up or something. We had to sew him back together and a few different things. But he's like, I can only give him so much morphine and we got to do it. So hold him down. And it's just all the weird, like, political dynamics with learning about Afghanistan and the tribes, and how they all hate each other, but they all love each other, and they all love us and they all hate us, and how much money is flowing around. It's just a lot to take in for your first rotation.
Did you go to Iraq? Were you ever in Iraq?
Not until my last rotation.
Yeah, Iraq and Afghanistan, man, 2 different countries, obviously, but like even on the war spectrum was just so different. I mean, you take Afghanistan, that place has been getting conquered since before Alexander the Great.
Yep.
And so there's just, I had gone to Iraq first before I went to Afghanistan, and just the difference in the cultures, and they're a tough people, and they're like fucking mountain goats, man. They can walk up the mountains, you know what I mean? And, walk on the side. It was just, yeah, sometimes I would pinch myself and like, dude, where am I? Because it's just to your point, you have the, up in northern Afghanistan, they look like Koreans almost, but it's like an Asian type culture that speaks, an Afghan language, and you can go down to the south, and it's, so many things going on in Afghanistan, militarily, culturally, politically. That was a wild place, but there were still parts of the country that were just extremely beautiful.
Oh yeah. It's funny now too, because we talk about it all the time. All the guys talk about it. It's like, it's the prettiest place I've ever been. Especially like my second rotation, we were up in the Hindu Kush over there, on the border, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
If you weren't worried about getting shot at and people, dumping all their poop in the river and all the other stuff, but.
Yeah, because Iraq, dude, I remember Iraq looked like a bombed out version of Los Angeles in the 70s, man. Was driving cheap Opel cars, and it was horrible. So I just remember that about Afghanistan being beautiful. How did you figure out, how to just fit in and make yourself useful, and what was that like?
You just figure it out. And no one really told me much before I got there. So helping unload the helicopters, I ended up becoming like the designated 240 cleaner post mission, because the 240 is not a complicated weapon. And so you just start to hey, I'm good. Show me how to clean this, and I'll take care of all the 240s off the back of the trucks every time we come back. Helping out with whoever you can, helping out with the Deltas for our little med clinic that we would have in the bazaar outside the base. And just starting to make kind of friendly connections, helping out with the artillery guys, because they were normal Army guys, so they were there for 18 months of the time.
Oh God!
So it was insanity. But they'd known my the weather guy that had been shot in the calf before me, so it was cool to talk to those guys and kind of get a longer period picture of the area. But you just gotta see work and do work, and it took me a little bit to figure it out. Our kitchen was a disaster. All the stuff you don't think about, right? It was hard to get food in. They wouldn't fly our food in. The aircraft wouldn't come low enough because they didn't want to get shot down. So they're dropping all of our stuff from way too high. It would go all over the place. They'd burn in. And so we're limited on food. We had I think one of our artillery guys or something was our cook because we didn't have a cook. And so like I spent time working in the kitchen. I spent time working with the medical guys, helping the Bravos out, trying to learn stuff as I went along without, also I didn't want to be like, hey guys, I have no training.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, you want to try to act like you've been there, even though, you know what I mean? Just so they take you serious.
Yeah. But eventually going up to like the Bravo being like, hey man, like I've never fired any of these belt fed weapons before. And so like, he takes me out to the range. We run through all the weapons, and he's like, "Have you ever thrown a grenade before?" I'm like, "No, dude. Like, I don't know how to tell you. I don't know why I'm here. You know, like, how did I get here?" And then yeah, so we went out there and you train up. You learn how to drive the Humvee, which I'd never done before. And ended up becoming I was a driver, and yeah. So you just start hopping in there and trying to provide value.
Were they pretty patient teaching you, man?
Hal wasn't. But yeah, I mean, you need an extra gun, you need an extra body. So if like you're willing to go, they know I can shoot. Like, one of the few things that I was pretty confident in was my ability to shoot my M4. But yeah.
Tell me about your roommate, Q. He was a SOWT, and then for people who don't know what a SOWT is, I don't even know what it stands for, man. Something, but they're cryptology / communication guys that can do spooky stuff with listening to people's radios and a bunch of probably classified shit we shouldn't even talk about. But yeah, they're like a communications. I don't even know how to describe them actually.
I mean, when we say that we hear chatter from the Taliban dudes or the Al Qaeda dudes, like those are the guys telling us the chatter, right? So when I first got off the helicopter and I was kind of lost, the captain came up to me, and the captain was actually very, very nice to me, and he was like, "Dude, it's cool. Like we can use you in a bunch of different ways." But Q was the guy that walked up to me, and Q was I believe an E6 in the Army. And looking back, there's no way that this guy should have helped me. But he was like, "Hey man, like I got an extra bed in my room." And he's an E6. He could have his own room. He should have had his own room. But he's like, "Yeah, come stay in my room. I need to put a door on my room. You want to help me find a door?" And so you're like going through like the trash pile, finding plywood and hooking stuff up. But Q was just like a super smart SOWT dude. Everybody liked him, and he could tell. I mean, he probably just looked at me and was like, "This kid needs help." And when I first got there, he's like, "Come stay in my room, bro." And that was that. And then we spent a lot of time together and talked a lot. And yeah, that was Q was a fantastic human and shaped a lot of the way that I did things in the future because of meeting him.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's good to explain to kind of the listeners. I mean, when you go to war and life happens really fast. Like I feel like everything speeds up. Like you feel everything, and so when you're, to your point, to have a roommate, like you spend a lot of time with them. They know you better sometimes than your spouse. Like my best friend, who I'm still close to this day, we deployed together. We spent 6 months together, and we were with each other pretty much, except for when we were sleeping or going to the bathroom. You know what I mean? We did everything together, and
sometimes,
yeah. So it's just to kind of, and we're going to talk about Q here in a minute, but it's, you form this bond, especially if you get along and you guys are all isolated from your families and, combat and, you're experiencing, stress and all that kind of stuff. So you really do form like a super close bond. What, Q was killed on that deployment. You want to talk a little bit about what happened?
Yeah. So my last day being there, so we'd been through some stuff and we became really good friends. He was probably the only person that I'd planned on seeing when I got home again. But it was my time to go. I was a short rotation because I was a replacement. And I remember standing up on top of the roof because that's where the weather equipment was. And I was up there and all the guys would line up in the Humvees in the courtyard there. And the National Geographic guys were there, which we weren't very happy about. But yeah, they rolled out. And I was, when we got into the biggest firefight we were in when we were there, I was on the back of the SOWT truck, which, by the way, is a bullet magnet because they had all the antennas on it.
Dude.
It was stupid. But like I said goodbye to those dudes. They rolled out. My helicopter came in. I hopped on the bird and I got out of there. And then by the time I landed in Kandahar, you walk into the jock and the red lights flashing, which means troops in contact, and they're writing names up on the board. And Q's name was up on the board, or they were writing it up on the board when I walked in. So that was tough,
What is yeah, how did that hit you, man?
I don't, you feel guilt, like the logical part of your brain is like, what would I have done? Like they rolled over an IED in a place that we had been maybe 2 weeks prior to that. Maybe a little more than 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Cause I think October 10th is when we got into that big fight. But like when we got into the firefight, we moved across this valley and we set up in like this little, overwatch position. And when the National Geographic guys were there and the captain wanted to take them on like a little tour of these areas, they went back to where they were and they found a bunch of IEDs. They missed one. That vehicle rolled over it. Q was inside the Humvee, so the overpressure got him. But what would have happened to me in reality? Because I was riding on the back of that truck. I would have got launched from it. I might have survived. It might have broke my neck. Who knows? But like I wouldn't have been able to change any of that. But just the fact that you're not there, and I'd spent a lot of time with these dudes. We'd been to that location before. I knew exactly what they were talking about. It's hard. Like I was there for Q's last conversation with his wife, and she was pregnant, and you just don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to talk about, like how do you explain like the guilt you feel for not being there for your boys?
Yeah, that's a tough one, bro. What are the memories of Q that you kind of really hold on to?
I'm just talking about his family, talking to his wife. All of his plans. Like I think he was going to go to law school or finish up law school. He was wicked smart, so we had a lot of stuff in common. He liked to read books. I like to read. But he was from I believe he was from New York, but like just a good dude. We'd hang out. And we you spend a lot of time with someone, you're going to have little spats and not want to see each other too. But like, he's probably the only person that understood, kind of where I was coming from and what had happened, or how I got there. But it's just, he had a life. He didn't have to be in the army. He was so smart, but like he had this, like, he wanted to serve. He wanted to do a good job. He wanted to take care of the guys. He was very professional about the way he did everything. And the conversation that sticks most is we were talking about it because we'd rolled out on a few patrols and nothing had really happened, and we had a conversation about wanting to prove ourselves, like a real honest conversation about like, man, like I don't want to like get shot at, but I do, like I want to see how I react when my life is legitimately in danger. When am I the guy that does what I say I'm gonna do, and I rise up and put my rifle in the right direction and do my job. Like, am I going to be able to do my job under those circumstances? And, that's a conversation that you just don't have with everybody. And I kind of felt bad because even after, cause they were in an up armored Humvee. And when we got into the big firefight, like he was stuck inside the whole time. He never got to get out and get his gun on, but like, he was still like, I don't know, man. Like, he's like, I did my job and he was great at it, but he still didn't get to have that one-on-one, gunfight experience.
Yeah, and I think too, man, like you guys were both support personnel to the ODA, and there's the different, like the support guys normally kind of cling to each other because you're not from the unit. You guys are ad hoc to the unit, and so I was a support guy on a rotation, and so I definitely know what that's like. You guys, I was with the tier 1 units. Those guys all have each other, and then like you're kind of just
Yeah.
If you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter,
Yep.
And so you end up clicking up with the other, support dudes, and those become, they become, your dude. You guys got in a pretty nasty tick. I know you would probably never say it. I'm gonna ask it anyway. I know you got an award for Valor. We talked to us about what happened that day.
Yeah. We rolled out. So Yakdan Bazaar was a few miles away from the fob, and we got pretty good intel that they were massing people and moving stuff through there. So we're going to roll over there. I think the official thing that we were doing was we were going to go out there and do a med cap, which was code for moved contact.
A med cap for everyone is like the 18 Deltas, which is the special forces medic, would schedule like a medical day, and like everybody would come in from all over, you know, the locals who had all medical problems, teeth, feet, whatever. And, you know, it was kind of like a way that special forces dudes could reach out to the community, especially if they're doing village stability ops. And so, you know, just imagine, you know, you live in a city, they don't have any medical care at all. And then this special force team shows up and provides, you know, essentially free medical care.
Yeah. Hand out really terrible protein bars. But we roll out, everybody, we're with the, Afghan, guys that we've been training. Anyway, we cross the river a little further up, L-shaped ambush. We get into a kind of an all-day gunfight. And during the gunfight, I think what they got me the V for was we had a ammo truck that we'd left at the checkpoint. So the ANA had a checkpoint back where we crossed the river. And so we assaulted through the first ambush point, and we were kind of at our second one. And we were running low on ammo. And they were like, we need that ammo truck. And I'm like, hey, I'll go get it. So I hop in I was in one truck. I hopped in a different truck. Drove back through the first ambush point. Our 50 was down. So I was up in the turret, but it had been shot. The weapon had been shot. And so they hand me the Thumper, the Vietnam era
M79.
Yeah.
Yes.
40 mic launcher. And so that was the first time ever, the only time ever I'd ever shot that. So that was cool. I was like, why do we have this in country? This is so old, but it's like, this is what we got to get back through that first ambush line, to get back to the truck and to get the ammo back to the team. So we did that. We went back there.
Were you just dump? I mean, were you shooting at it? Or were you guys under, like,
yeah, from like
contact?
The places where we thought there were still people, just to keep their heads down so we could get back.
So you're just dumping 40 mics from a single shot
yeah.
from the. Yeah.
It was stupid. You're probably hitting nothing on nothing, or, but we got back there. I hopped in the ammo truck. It was not up armored. It was thin skin, no doors, full of explosives and ammunition, which you don't think about at the time. You think about later. Drove back through the ambush locations, and then hopped out and was like, who needs ammo? And you start grabbing ammo cans out of the back to get to the.
And you guys are ticked up at the time too?
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a piece of my brain at one point when I had to cross this like open ground to get to another gun truck, and you're like, this could be it. And you just got to shut that part of your brain off and be like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, bro. So you just resupply everybody with their ammo, you know, all that other stuff. And then that was my truck after that. And my radio went down, my fill or whatever. We were on the embitters at the time. And so my crypto went down, so I couldn't talk to the team. But at some point we decided to split the team into two different elements, right? Like one team on one side of the valley, one team on the other side of the valley. And so this dude is like, follow us, bro. And I'm like, cool. I hop in my truck. I start following him. He flips a U-turn and starts like making something through his window. And you know, all the windows are gross and dirty, and I don't have my radio's not working. The rest of the guys that we were following keep bombing across this valley. And I'm like, I'm just going to follow. Like,
and you're by yourself in the truck?
Yeah. Oh. So I'm like,
in the ammo truck, which is like a driving explosive target.
With no doors, and people are shooting, right? Like it's a, so I'm like, I'm just going to follow the other guys. Like, I don't know what he's doing. If he's saying he's going back or whatever. So I'm just going to follow the other guys across the valley, because that was the original instruction, the last actual instructions I got. And so we're driving across this valley. We start taking fire. And so, like, I remember when we were at Fort Campbell training, one of the 5th Special Forces guys was talking to us. And he's like, present your body armor to the gunfire. And he's like, and your points that are going to kill you really quick, if they get you here under your armpit, or if they get your femoral, he's like, or your neck, obviously. He's like, those are points that you got to protect. So I remember slouching down in my chair and kind of turning so that if I was taking fire through the door, it would hit my body armor. And I had my M4 under my arm and just like randomly shooting out the door. And I had my M9 trying to shoot out the other door while driving through this stupid valley to get to the other side, in this stupid Humvee with no doors, full of ammo and explosives. But it worked out. And, yeah, it was ended up being an okay day. We had a warrant officer that got his thumb shot off, but otherwise everybody was good.
I love how you just like casually. This is like a total Trent story, man. Like total gunfight, but we're still smiling and laughing. That's why I love you, dude. I remember you telling me too, I don't know if it was that one you were talking about. I remember you were telling me like you were hearing your JTAC talk on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. Talk to us about that.
So Juan was he was the TAC P out there. And, you know, like I'd heard a bunch of stuff on the radio before, but it is surreal when you're in it. And like, so the estimates were that we got jumped by like 200 chuckleheads. Who knows how many guys it actually was, but it was a lot of gunfire. And just hearing that dude come up on comms, just the calmest person in the world, and he's got like an accent. So he's like, "Hey, so we are troops in contact. We are taking AK, PKM, and it's like you hear the shoo, boom. And he's like, and yep, an RPG fire. We're taking RPGs. You know, he's just like super calm about it, calling in the strikes, and you know, called him some A10 gun runs and all that other stuff. But it's just like hearing him come up on comms. It's like, okay, like this is normal, and he's not gonna panic about it. He'd been there a bunch of times before. Yeah, it was super cool.
It is amazing in like both high stress environments, so like gunfights, and also medically stressful environments, whether it's an accident. You know, one of the things we always learned is like calm breeds calm. Yep. And if you go nuts, everybody's going to go nuts. So that's just another life lesson, you know, yep. No matter what happens, if you stay calm, you can really affect the outcome sometimes. Yeah. How did that like kind of firefight, you know, especially the big one that you did. And I'm sure I know that wasn't your only one on that trip, but you know, what did that kind of teach you about yourself and you know, that situation?
Well, it taught me, I mean, you can do your job, you know, that's, you know, the fight started, we were all spread out, our vehicle rushed up. So I was in the SOWT truck, and we were I think the only truck that didn't have a 240 on a swing arm on the back. So it was me and my M4, and then the guy in the turret. We had an 11 Bravo who was security for the SOWT dudes. But of course the Mark 19 goes down right away. He launches I think 3 rounds out of it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like kind of like, okay, this guy's got it. And you know, my back is to the front and the fire is coming from like over there. And it's still to our front. So I'm like, you know, he's got the Mark 19, he'll handle it, whatever. And he just yells, "Cover me." And so like that was the moment. It's like, oh crap. You know, like, so like we're taking effective fire. You can hear it hitting the vehicle, and that's your moment to pop up over the top of the truck and lay rounds down on people that are actively trying to kill you. And that was like the big thing that I wanted, right? Like, you know, could you face down muzzle flashes and shoot back like you'd been taught? And yeah, you can do that. Did
you feel, you know, I'm sure you probably didn't think about it at the time, but kind of looking back, do you think your training like helped, some of the training you received, it helped prepare you for some of that stuff?
Yeah, I still remember, and I told him years later when we went back to Rifles Only, one of our instructors' name was Andrew. And I told him years later, like, I heard your voice. Like, you know, like we call it training for a reason. It's not education. It's because you train someone like a dog, you know, like, and not in a negative way. It's like, dude, this is action. Don't think about it. Just do it. But I heard his voice in my head, like, pop up, side alignment, side picture, squeeze, breathe, psh, squeeze, you know, like, and I just did what he told me to do. You know, I found my targets, the ones that were shooting at our truck, and did my job. And I heard his voice, right? Like, and there was a certain part of the day, right? A little bit after that, where your brain wants to acknowledge the reality of what's happening. You know, there's rounds coming in, and there's a lot of chaos, and I did feel that like panic thing, like my very human emotion try to rise, and you just got to push it back down and be like, now is not the time. Now is not the time to do that. We can deal with all of this later if we survive. But I think part of the training, even though mine was very limited, that what they teach you is it's like, that's not going to help. Only do things that are going to help. And by 06, we'd had like some pretty pragmatic training with like the medical stuff and all that. You know, like the first thing you do is fire back. You know, like you can C-clamp someone's neck, but really your job is stop the bleeding and get them out of there, as long as you're not under effective fire anymore. And so very pragmatic training, and I think that helped a lot.
How did it feel to be recognized for valor as an Air Force dude working with Army SF guys?
It felt pretty good. you'd be lying to say it didn't.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know that they were gonna put that in for me, the come with the V device. Um, but you work hard, and you're a young guy, and you're with some ODAs, and things don't always go perfect, and I made mistakes, and they were who they were, and we were in the middle of Afghanistan, and it's an imperfect environment, and I was learning a lot, and overall they were very patient with how they treated me, but it was pretty cool.
Was it something that like it was totally unexpected when you got it?
I mean, I don't even think I thought about it.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was walking past like the little office area on the fob, and Larry, called me over, and he's like, "Hey, is this how we spell your name?" And I don't know if I just was like too much information in a short period of time, and I was just trying to get through my deployment. But he kind of walked me through the citation. He's like, "Is that sound about right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." He's like, "Yeah, there's like a big deal, right?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Yeah, man," like, and I really appreciate it. And sometimes my face doesn't portray my feelings very well, but it was pretty cool, and I really liked those guys.
You had a National Geographic documentary that was filmed on your rotation. I actually had watched it twice and didn't even. And then when we were doing your podcast prep, and you said that dude's name, I'm like, oh, dude, I've seen this. I know this story. What was it like having like a National Geographic dude rolling around with you guys?
Wasn't cool.
Yeah.
So he was only there for a little bit before they rolled out. That was the day that I left when they rolled out, but we all knew he was showing up, and it's funny because all the team guys were like, I don't want to talk to this dude. So the captain assigned, I think, one of the Charlies and maybe one of the Deltas. He said, you guys have to talk to these guys. And then there were some other support guys, like civil affairs types, that in the documentary they say are Green Berets, and they are not. But they, they're chatty people, and I don't want to say anything like too bad about them, but like most of the team guys wanted nothing to do with it, especially at the time. Like, you don't want your face on camera. We didn't have a choice in them coming out, so we're professional about it, but they had to feel a little bit of a cold shoulder when they showed up.
Yeah. Q died on the day that you were leaving that deployment. You landed Kandahar. You were just talking about, you saw that red light flashing in the jock and realized it's the team that you just watched leave. How do you process losing someone that close on the day that you're going home, man?
I don't think I processed it for like another 5 years. I don't know. It's weird, right? Because your deployment is like a real experience that's not. And you get back to safety, and you have all the guilt, and my buddy that was back there that was helping me pack up my stuff and leave, he was really cool about it, and but like, you just don't talk about it, like, and when you get home, which is the weirdest part, right? Like, so like limited training weather guy, I go on this deployment, I come back with an ARCOM with a V. I've been in some stuff, and which was pretty cool for my career field at the time. So like, you get home and everybody's like psyched for you, right? Like, and you're like a shiny penny all of a sudden, but you're like, yeah, but like, that wasn't the whole thing, like, and years later you find out like all the other guys, or a lot of the other guys, had lost friends and all that other stuff, but it's just, you go back to your apartment and you sit there by yourself, and it's not like it is now, and you just try to move on.
You mentioned people mispronouncing Q's name, and you got, pretty pissed off. What was that like, watching other people handle your friend's death who didn't really know him?
I mean, as a young man that my first friend that died in combat, it's an emotional event. There's no other way to put it. You're right. Like, so like I'm very invested in what happened, and they are, you're at the jock, people die, you got to do your job. And it's not personal, but it was very personal to me. So looking back, like, it's not their fault, but it's like, man, his name is Q Che, it's not rock surgery. And I'm very upset about it. And I needed to remove myself from that situation, which I eventually did. But like, it's hard to take something that personal and watch other people deal with it. It's like watching doctors deal with a loved one in a hospital, right? They're just doing their job. That's just another person that they're dealing with. But to me, it was a very big deal. And it was hard, like, of all the dudes out there, right? Like, of all the gun trucks that were rolling around, of all the times, it was the gun truck that I'd been on last, that I was supposed to be on that night if I hadn't been pulled out. And of course, the one dude that dies, the terp ended up dying a little bit later too. But the only guy that dies right away is the guy that I actually really care about. And it was a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine. I know these questions aren't easy to answer, so I appreciate your openness and your willingness to discuss that. And, you know, you and I talked off camera, and I've said this on other people and to other people on my podcast, but, you know, a soldier, airman, Marine, they normally die twice, once on the battlefield and once when nobody speaks their name. And so I only asked about that story, not as to, you know, just to tell a war story, but, you know, for the sake of that dude's wife and his kid, and just so we can, again, remind people who he is.
Yeah.
Let's take a break if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by TitanSARMs.com, your trusted source for research-grade SARMs. These third-party tested compounds are formulated to support research into tissue selective activity, especially in muscle and bone. Titan offers free nationwide shipping, a wide selection in both capsules and droppers, and oversized 90 capsule and 90 ml bottles. Everything is compounded in the USA, raising the bar for quality and reliability. From the lab to your door, Titan delivers transparent data and premium service. That's TitanSARMs.com. Use discount code Vanguard10 to save 10% on your order. Cool. Coming back from the break, man, we're just going to kind of pick up. So, you know, you come back from this, you know, deployment. One of the things you hit on earlier that I thought was interesting talking about, you know, is again, man, the ODA, they go back as a team, take some leave, they get all come back, and you're kind of like, you've had this experience with all these dudes, you lose a close friend, and you go back and, you know, everybody's kind of like, I wouldn't say excited for you, but you know, you mentioned it, like the new shiny penny. Here you are, this weather dude. Now you guys got some recognition, but still you're kind of, I don't know, man, there's got to be this feeling of you're kind of on your own. Nobody really understands what you just went through. They weren't there with you, that type of stuff. How do you process that?
I don't know. It is weird because like you're proud of what you've done. Obviously, like I've knocked out my first deployment. I didn't burn down the career field. I did my job. But you lost Q. You go home and the guys are like, "Oh, I heard you were slinging bullets," you know, like, and you're like, yeah, and that's not bad. But then you're just on your own. So it's all these weird things, and I had to train up for this training course that I was supposed to go to before I deployed. And so, like, thank goodness I had that because it gave me something to do in my downtime. Because, like I said, it's not like it is now. I got home, you in-process the base. They're like, I think they started to do like, hey, did you experience any of these things? And did you see any of these things while you're deployed? And you're like, yes. They're like, cool, bye. You know, and so I go back to my apartment. My roommate was, he was gone. And so you're just kind of by yourself, just being like, okay, you know, and you go through some weird things. The time change is messing you up too. I remember I was in the mall and I saw one of the guys from I think 7th group that I'd met while we were when I first got out there, and he walks up to me. He's like, "Bro, are you good?" You know, I'm in the Fayetteville Mall, and I couldn't remember why I was there. You know, you go through like that stuff where you're like, I don't know if I'm like disassociating so hard to try to get through this that like I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then you like go to the grocery store and you're like you see everything in a brand new light. And you see all these fatties walking around and all the options and all the other stuff, and you're like, holy crap, like we really do live different here.
Oh man.
So it's kind of taking all that in at once. It's like a big before and after moment. But you know, I don't know if you ever finish processing it or if it's just something that you have to internalize and learn your lessons from.
So you're prepping for your second deployment. You're going back out. What was your dwell time, man, between?
It was pretty good. I got back in November, and then I went to that training event for 3 months-ish, whatever, 3 or 4 months down in Florida, and then we left again in July or August. So about a year, leave date to leave date.
And then the same thing, man, you get just dropped off in the middle of nowhere and find your way to the team, or was this one a little bit more?
No, the second one was a lot more organized. So like things were changing for the career field, and we actually deployed with the special tactics squadron that was going out there at the same time as us. and I knew where I was going before I got there, and all these other things. They because of so my career field, some of them did recognize that like maybe this dude went through some stuff that he wasn't ready for, and they put me through a lot of training really quick, and it was a little unusual. So like, okay, we're gonna send him to the other side of the country this time and try to give him a break, which was nice, I guess, but it was just different. It was organized. We all went over there together. You know, you get to Bagram or Kandahar, and you know where everybody's going, right? Like, and it was a totally different experience.
Did you have a lot more confidence going into the second deployment? Now you're not a newbie, dude. I mean,
Yeah. Like the first one, it's like, you're trying to get used to the way the team talks to you and the dynamics and all the other stuff. The second one, you walk in, and the first guy that's like, "Hey, Air Force," you're like, "Shut up, Army." Like, what's you're a little salty. I had an ODA guy. He's probably a pretty good wrestler, but like, I'm not like a jiu-jitsu guy, but I'm not stupid. It was funny. One of the first things that happened to me is we're in like the radio room, and the team sergeant's sitting there like on the phone or something, and this echo comes in, and we start talking smack or something, and he takes me down, and I slap a guillotine on the dude. And I remember the team sergeant just like looking, and he's like, "Okay," and then the dude taps out, and he's just like,
it's like kids.
Yeah. But like a month and a half later, I remember this Terp and I were like kind of getting into it a little bit, and the Terp pushes me, and like kind of out of nowhere, the team sergeant's like, "I wouldn't do that," So it was a lot more fun, I would say, in certain respects, because like, yeah, I had the confidence. I knew who was out there with me at the time. I had a better idea of what I was going to be doing, especially on the weather side, and what would impact operations. That the big picture was a lot more clear to me. So I think I did a lot better at my job, even though like, because you don't get into huge gunfights, you don't get the recognition afterwards. But like, if you become a weather nerd for recognition, then
wrong
what
job,
are you doing?
Yeah. What was that deployment like for you, as far as what you're doing and your second deployment, different part of the area? What were you guys doing on that trip?
Very little. A lot of present stuff. So it was 07 into early 08, and it was the war seemed like it was getting really political. We were co-located with conventional Army guys. I think the 173rd was out there at the time. And so it was cool because there were some TAC-Ps over there that we were friends with, and they had an EOD guy that we'd let roll with us. But we had like the Special Forces compound, and on the outside of the compound, it was like this tent city. In the winter, they spray it with that foam, and it looks ridiculous. But, we actually live in rooms, and we have like queen-size beds. Like the comfort level, first deployment to second deployment, was insane. We're right next to a river, right? So like we had flushing toilets, all the things. The first deployment, it's a can, it was very much
Spartan,
how you would imagine it. Yeah. So it was really different. We had a hard time getting a lot of missions approved. They're just getting told no a lot.
Were they doing village stability? Were you with an ODA? I guess.
Yeah.
Were you on another FOB?
Yep. Yeah, I was out at Naray, which I think ended up being FOB Miller before it got shut down. I think the SEALs took over a little bit after that. It's hard to keep track of everything that happens.
What were you guys doing? Was that ODA doing DA stuff, or was it all just VSO stuff? Or
so when I first got there, like they did one DA mission that I didn't go on. I got off the helicopter. They planned it. They went. They came back. The JTAC that was there ripped out shortly after that. And some it was okay, but like it had taken them months to get that approved, and that they already had everything nailed down. So I show up, and like 3 days later, I'm like, fine, like, yeah, guys, go. But not much happened on that rotation. Like in the way that people would expect it to happen. I ended up going up to Keating for a little bit because they were having a hard time getting supplies, and it was wintertime, so there's not like a bunch of fights going on all over the place, around Christmas and all that other stuff. But we were in the mountains, and so the weather was a much bigger concern. So like when Keating from that movie, when they weren't getting supplies, or they couldn't get the helicopters up there, I went up there and did the thing where I took pictures. I made a PowerPoint slide for them. I'm like, hey, when the clouds on the mountain get to this level, like that's when you need to call back to your folks down at Naray, and they need to let me know so I can let the helicopters know that like this is good, this is bad, and it kind of like build out my little weather network.
Keating was the outpost got overran, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
that place sucked. It was that's such a great movie. I like to watch that movie too because it's exactly all the things that they go through in that movie, especially in the beginning, is exactly how it is. You get dropped off in the middle of the night. You know, I throw my poncho over my head, make my radio thing. Hey, I made it. I go find a barracks thing to sleep in, wake up, fleas everywhere. And then you walk outside and you look around and you're like, this is the worst place to put a base that you could have picked. It was down in the bottom of the river valley, high ground all around you. It was stupid.
I remember seeing the PowerPoints when I got into Afghanistan, I think late 2010, and like the decimation from that attack and that fob getting overrun was wild, man.
It was stupid.
What's a good funny story you have from that deployment, bro?
Man, I'm trying to think. I'm not a very good funny story guy.
Bullshit.
I mean, you know, there's some tomfoolery. It's funny. My first deployment, I remember somebody telling me, one of my friends, he's like, "Hey man, don't get drunk out of a fob." And I'm so naive. I'm like, "How do you get drunk at a fob?" It's not that hard. Okay,
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of people flying around with a lot of stuff, and especially on that rotation too. We're right on the border, and you can get anything from Pakistan. You're talking pills, alcohol, any of the stuff that you want. So like we would have problems with some, support things going on. But I mean, I still remember that was the first time I saw someone spill a full soda on an Apple laptop. He dried it out and it worked the next day, and that's why I have apples to this day.
Oh, dude, only thing I use.
Yeah, and I saw Nick at my buddy's retirement a couple months ago, and I told him, I'm like, bro, I still remember when we did that. But like we'd have poker nights. I was there for two ODAs, right? So I showed up, and 7th group was there, and so that's another thing is like building relationships, right? Like so you show up halfway through 7th group, they loved their SOWT that they had before, which was fine because it made me work hard to try to be better. But then they leave, and then 3rd group shows up, and I'm there for the first half of their rotation. But I don't know. We left a guy that Echo that choked me out was scared of driving fast on a 4-wheeler, and we do a lot of like 4-wheeler stuff for speed of security. And you'd get back to base, and you're all kind of on your own on your quad, and we get back to like a safe area. And we look back and it's like, where is this dude? Like he should have been kidnapped like at least 6 times because he would just go his own speed. Like he wouldn't go fast. And we're like, what is wrong with you? Stuff like that. And then like our team sergeant Jim on that team, he was funny. And now I'm thinking about it. He had a thing for manatees. So you know how like most teams have like Punisher skulls painted on everything. Yeah. We ended up making a manatee whatever thing so we could paint manatees on like all the stuff. And Jim was a hilarious person.
Robbie Miller passed away on that rotation.
Yep.
Robbie Miller was just 24, the same age you were on your first deployment. He was young, motivated saw gunner who talked a lot of shit. When you think about who he was as a person, how do you remember most about his personality, or what do you remember?
Robbie, so Robbie and I did not get along in the beginning, which is a theme for people that I end up being friends with, I think. But he talked a lot of smack, but he was like the whatever it is for that ODA. Like they all loved him. He was like everybody's little brother. He was the youngest guy on the team. He was highly motivated. He was great at languages, super smart dude, smaller dude, saw gunner still. So of course, like, don't give the saw to one of the giants on the team. Give it to Robbie Miller. Never complained about it. So in the beginning, him and I just didn't get along. And, but eventually, like, we found our common ground and started working. We ended up being pretty cool. But it was a weird deployment, too. That team was so weird because Robbie was a Bravo and the other Bravo was super smart. And it's like, I'm on a team with 2 smart Bravos. This is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life because they're Bravos, Bravos have a reputation for, even if they are smart, acting like they're not smart. But it was
for all you guys out there in 18 Bravo's Special Forces Weapons Sergeant, there's some knuckle dragging dudes, man. They're normally like, just straight up knuckle draggers.
Yeah, but Robbie was a smart dude, and we ended up becoming pretty friendly. I wouldn't say like we were like besties or anything like that, but yeah, he was a young guy. He liked to party. He liked to talk. He liked to do all the things. You know, he wanted to go out and get into gunfights. They'd been deployed to that base, I think, the year before, and only gotten to like one minor skirmish. So that team was still kind of like looking for the thing. Like I think, more trigger time than most of that team. But Robbie was like their mascot.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Robert Miller died on that deployment and ultimately received the Medal of Honor from, I think, President Obama's the one that signed that citation. What would have surprised people about him that they wouldn't know from reading his Medal of Honor citation?
I'm not sure. It's always weird, like reading stuff about guys that have passed, you know, and you never want to he was a human, you know, like he's just a normal. In a lot of ways, he's the normal. If you would have found him on a college campus, you wouldn't have been surprised, right? Like that, but like also he's both of those things. He is that highly professional, smart, caring, empathetic person that you read about. But also he's a wild dude. He's a Green Beret. He's 24 years old. You know, like he's all of those things all at the same time. And so it's always weird, like when you talk to people and they bring up someone that has either passed or won, you know, or received like a high level medal. And they're like, oh my goodness, this guy must be like a certain way, you know, like the Hollywood version of that person. And it's like, man, like part of him is, and part of him is just normal dude, you know, maybe a little crazy, but they're just normal people.
Yeah. I remember you telling me like when you guys first met each other, you guys like just didn't get along. What was it?
We just didn't click. You know, he talked a lot. I was on my second rotation. I was a little salty. You know, that's my second ODA of that rotation. I got along with a lot of guys on that team. But Robbie and I just did not get along at first. I don't know. Maybe it's because we were both young. We're both smaller guys. We both, you know, solve problems with some aggression and some smack talk. And it just did, you know, like, it just didn't go, you know, like, and I don't think he knew how to take, like some of the older guys, right? Like there was the Delta on the team, the big Irish looking dude. I could say whatever I wanted to that guy. And he wouldn't care, you know, because he knew that he could rip my arms off and beat me with them. He'd been a Green Beret for a long time, you know, but him and I think we're still kind of in that proving ourselves part of our lives. And so everything is a little more serious and you know, we're still a slightly sensitive people to words.
Did what was it that you guys, I know at some point you guys started clicking and you guys did start getting along?
Yeah, I mean, we were involved with some of the stuff with dealing with the locals, just working through some things, and then I started doing some stuff on my own. Like when I went to Keating, I was just on my own because they needed some weather stuff. They didn't need ODA stuff. And so you just started to like see people doing different things, and like they were going on an op that I couldn't go on for something. It was like a quick out and back. And I was like, hey man, like you're a smart dude. Like I need a weather reading from this location while you guys are out there. And here's why it's important. And I kind of explained it to him, and he found out that I really care about my job, and I'm trying to like put all this stuff together for all these reasons, and had like a normal conversation with him about work. And I think that's what it was. When it came down to work, like we were like, oh, we can work together, and like you're a smart dude and you can understand why I need these things, and I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be somewhere else. And he was like, okay, yeah. And so like just him starting to see like the value, I think, of what I was doing, and me understanding how, like I figured out that he was really good at languages, and he's a super smart dude and knew what he was doing. And it wasn't just this like brash 24-year-old that just wanted to shoot people in the face. You know, just start to grow that respect from that professionalism. And then you start to have normal conversations after that.
You were supposed to be on that mission with Robbie on January 25th, 2008. Instead, an Army CI guy wanted to go get his gun on and went in your place. How did you reconcile that in your mind and that random decision, and, you know, what it meant when you stayed?
Well, I was about to rip out. So like we'd been on a bunch of like patrols and stuff on that rotation, and we never got into like a big gunfight. And so it was like, whatever, you guys are going to go. This guy wants to go. My replacement's inbound. So I want to be here to meet him and show him around and hand over as fast as I can. I'm packing up my stuff. So it wasn't like a huge sacrifice on my part. You know, to me, they were just driving up there and coming back, you know. And we'd tried to go out there a few different times, and they'd said no. But you know, my they were like, "Hey, your replacement's inbound. This guy wants to go be a driver." I'm like, "Fine, yeah, I'll stay. I don't care. Like, it's cold out there."
Yeah.
But then, manning the radio, seeing the team leader come back who'd been shot, and they just transferred him helicopters when he got back to the FOB to go to a higher level of care. But he'd been shot through the top, down through his lung, collapsed his lung. So they medevaced him. And then hearing that we had, the radio chatter, you don't say certain things. You don't say, in or KIA, we don't say Robbie's dead, any of that stuff. It's like they couldn't find him for a little bit. There was a lot of chaos going on. And then when when Robbie showed back up at the FOB, and that was like the real confirmation to me that he was gone. It was like, that wasn't cool. And then it's the same thing. Logically, would I have made a difference? No. Like that, probably not. Like I'm not a superhuman person.
Can you kind of like walk us through? Because I know you were telling me, and I don't think people understand. Like you kind of stayed back, but somebody has to man the radios. But you're in a smaller like FOB, and there wasn't a lot of people back there. I think, was there?
No, there wasn't a bunch of us back there. So like so they went up there's this. So we were up north of the base. There was like this checkpoint that we had, and beyond the checkpoint and kind of up and around this mountain, there was a place we've been trying to go for a long time. We knew bad guys were up there, but last time we'd gone up there, nobody shot at us. But we were rolling deep. We rolled with some OGA guys up there. We got like a last second tasking, went up there, and it was, no one shot at us because we had a ton of vehicles and everybody. But so they were going up there for that, and they've come to find out, like they called everybody in. Everybody there was a shooter, and they got into this huge ambush. I think my buddy Rob was the JTAC there, and he Winchestered a whole bunch of stuff. Robbie rushed a position. He was the saw gunner, and he did what he did, and he rushed up there, but he took a round right under the armpit, and that was it for him. So it was kind of messed up because I still had like another day with that team before I left, and so I felt guilty about leaving the team. But you have guys on the team that rounds literally bounced off them, and so they're dealing with what they're dealing with. I wasn't even there. I'm leaving, and it's kind of just like, what do you do?
What was it like you're in the jock listening to all the radio traffic, and like you're hearing everything that's going on. Like, how are you processing that?
Well, I'm not the QRF. I'm a single dude, so like that's the thing. It's like, you want a QRF, but like you can't. So you just make sure that any traffic that gets passed, if like the SOWT doesn't pick something up, or if something needs to be relayed, you just need to do your job. You need to relay information if it needs to be relayed. You need to be there when the helos come in to help offload, people or anything else that needs to be done, just to make sure that the guys that are up there in the tick have what they need as best you can from there. But it's a feeling of helplessness that it's just like, and you can't help but think like, of course, like the day that I don't go, like the day that I'm, my replacement's coming in, and I have like that theory about me, like the Halo, theory, like it's like bad things just don't happen when I'm there. And you just feel helpless, and it's stupid.
When they brought Robbie's body back and asked you, where do you want to put his body? How did you even process being asked that question about your friend?
You just got to get the work done at a certain point, right? You put him in the med building, clear his weapon out, make sure everything's good to go, uniform wise and all that other stuff. The team was going to be back before, they took all his stuff or anything. So I don't know if he had someone assigned to take care of his laptop and all those other things that you have your teammates do if you're going to die. But just taking care of him, like you take care of them, and you say your prayer, say goodbye, and just move on to the next task.
You left the day after Robbie was killed, and you had to jump on a flight. And I know like a lot of your rotator flights. Did you fly back with the squadron, or did you?
Yeah, that one. Geez. So that was the rotation that I was dating my wife. So a lot of things that happened, And then that, at the end of it, Robbie died. So we were still in country when I found out they were going to stand up a pipeline and they were looking for an instructor. At the time I was feeling pretty jaded about deploying again. And so I kind of like volunteered even before we got back. But then, we got on a C-17 and we flew back. And this was unusual for me because my first rotation back, it was like, it's just me. I land at the airport. One of the guys picks me up, grabs my weapon to take it back to the armory as a favor. And you just go back to the unit and sign in and go back to your apartment, right? This time, we're flying back into Hurlburt Field, which is the AFSOC headquarters, with everybody. And it's hard not to like have feelings about, I just didn't want to talk to people. And you land and there's like the crowd of wives, like all the video stuff. And that probably bothered me more than a lot of the other stuff. Like I just, you're getting off the plane and all these dudes are trying to shake your hand. And I'm just trying to find this girl that I'm trying to propose to, so I can get out of there. And that was weird. I think I would have preferred to come back a lot more anonymous.
Yeah, I can imagine like the dichotomy that's going on in your brain. I mean, you've just come back from this trip, you just lost a dude that you're friends with. And then so you have that in one side of your brain, and the other side is like, you're happy to see this girl that you're coming home to. And like, a lot of people don't understand that war that goes on, as both evil and good are fighting for control of your head at the end of a deployment. Plus it's just, sometimes it's hard just to come home in general, right? You're in a foreign country with like a war and like, food options are scarce. Then you come back and like, to discredit some people, like some people just don't understand. They've never been it. And they don't know how good we have it here. They just take it all for granted. And so it's like, I had my best friend was on here talking about like, he'd with the Ranger Battalion, he's in a gunfight one day and literally the next day he's driving in Tacoma. And you're just like, your brain, sometimes it's almost like jet lag, but it's like brain lag where you coming back to the real world, trying to process where you were just like 24 to 48 hours ago and everything that's happened in that time frame.
Yeah.
So, transitioning from, kind of your combat deployment time and building the special operations weather technician pipeline, how did that start? Or, how did that come about? Was it that the Air Force kind of finally realized like, hey, these dudes are getting into it. Was there an issue, a problem, or what was it?
No, it was a good thing. We needed to make our training streamlined, and we needed to, so before the idea was you had a weather guy first that you would train up to be special operations, but there wasn't a single selection. There wasn't any of the other stuff that I think our guys needed if we were going to be putting them in these situations. And so obviously I was very invested in that project, having been told I was going to get a certain level of training before my first deployment, and not working out, not their fault. And so I was like, hey, it would be nice if these guys had all this stuff. So combat control in the Air Force had a pipeline. They go to air traffic control school at Keesler. We go to weather school at Keesler. So we just kind of jumped on their pipeline and went along with them. And we worked with them a lot anyway. So I saw the value in it. I thought I was a pretty smart guy. I had enough experience to go back there to be like the first guy to start standing that up. So, a couple of senior NCOs called me up and we went on the E9s. I had to go to lunch with them and like interview. And my E7 or E8 at the time, he was like, yeah, he can do it. And so as an E5, they're like, cool, you're going to go do this thing. And in the background, they'd found some money and all this other stuff. And we had this mission set from SOCOM that, we had SOCOM requirements that we had to meet. And we're like, okay, to meet these requirements in a much better way, we're going to run a pipeline and set up the new career field. So that's what they did. And they sent me out there to make it happen.
You show up as an E5 to build this pipeline and they've already spent the money on other things.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was not as well prepared as I had thought it was. So like at first I show up and I go to the combat control office, I knock on the door and they're like, yeah, who are you? I'm like, I'm Trent Seegmiller. I'm supposed to be like starting the special operations weather pipeline. And they're like, what? So like they have no idea. I go talk to the weather schoolhouse people where the money had gone to stand this up. And eventually it comes out that, yeah, a large chunk of money had come in and some of it had gone to gym equipment, but like most of it had just been, how it is, like it's in the budget, they spend it. and I wasn't there yet. So, dude, the logistical process of standing up a pipeline was, you got to find bed space. I'm like finding furniture on base from other places to carve out space for my guys to live while they're in training. I'm buying stuff off of GSA Advantage. I'm writing curriculum for the first time ever, which I have no idea how to do in the beginning. And the way that you write like professional, like college level curriculum is insanely difficult for a guy just coming off a team. At least it was for me. It's just very structured.
You have nobody to cheat off of, bro.
Dude. So I always said it was like digging a hole with my forehead is what it felt like. But like it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's really uncommon for like an E5. Like, I mean, that seems like it's all senior NCOs and officers. So, I mean, they obviously saw something in you, and you had, 2 trips where,
I was the one dumb enough to say I'll do it.
Get that guy. I mean, how did you navigate those meetings where, higher ranking people are kind of struggling to listen to what you're telling them and how you want to build it?
Yeah. So there, yeah. There's always this like we call it like the red hat, gray hat, combat control versus us thing, and we're like their little brother, and we fight. But I like to tell people like our pipeline would not have happened without combat controllers, because I remember we went back to the office and we had our E7 there, and I was complaining about some stuff. I'm like, I'm in this meeting and I'm talking and I'm telling them what I need, and I'm probably being way too AFSOC about it. For the number of stripes I have, and 8, the training command is very rank, focused. If you don't have the rank, like, I'm not going to listen to you. And I didn't have the rank, and he listened to me and he goes, okay, he's like, when is the next meeting? And I tell him, and he's like, okay, I'll be there. He's like, what do you want me to say? And I was like, well, this is what I need. He's like, okay. We show up to the next meeting, combat control, E7, well-spoken. He'd been in the training environment for a while. He lays out the requirements, the requirements that we need. And they're like, oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, of course, Mass Sergeant. And I'm just like, what the, because I come from a place where our commander, our lieutenant colonel, he treats me like a human. He treats me in a way that is based on my experience, and my knowledge and all this other stuff. And so like I knew where I racked and stacked, and then that was the most important thing is your experience and your knowledge. And you go to this other environment, it's like, bro, they couldn't care less about what you know or what you think and your experience. Like this is a training environment.
Yeah. What were you trying to build in that SOWT pipeline that didn't exist?
I think everybody has a culture, right? Like the Green Berets have their own culture versus the Rangers. They're very different cultures. I think from the outside looking in, you might not understand that, but like I didn't want to create combat controllers. I wanted to create nerds that were monsters. So one of the things, like I talked about when I first got into the career field, we had the nerds that became monsters and got, I wouldn't not call them special operations guys because they did all the things, and they would have made it through the selection process. But that's what we're trying to build, was that selection process to weed out the guys that shouldn't have been there from the beginning, but also maintain that unique culture of nerds with guns type of stuff. I still wanted to be weather guys. I never wanted to be like, hey, like being a weather guy isn't cool or whatever. Like I was honest with my students, like no one's ever going to care. Like you're not going to be able to go to the bar and be like, I'm a SOWT, and like you're not a Navy SEAL. But that was really important to me, is to maintain that culture and to an understanding of how these things happen, right? Like if you're not good at weather, the team isn't going to respect you, right? Like then what do you bring to the table other than being another gun, right? Which is fine, but it's not our job. But if you're a good weather guy, you're a good teammate, and then you're also tactically proficient, that's when you get to go on the missions, right? And then like you have to build that circular thing instead of just showing up and being ashamed to be a weather guy. And it's hard because you have like these hard chargers that are like, we put them through all this tactical training and all this other stuff, and it's like, yeah, but you're still a weather guy. And the young guys want to push back a little bit on it, but it's like, no, but without that, that's your access to everything. And when you talk about some of the other stuff, and maybe a not combat environment, and some of the access it can give you and cover it can get you to get into different places, to be able to speak weather and to know weather, which is a universal, it's a global thing. There's weather people in almost every country. and I've met nerds in weird countries that are super into weather. It can give you that access and emplacement that is very important that I think some people overlook.
Placement and access is definitely something I understand, dude.
Yeah.
How did the old figure it out as you go system fail, guys, man?
It was just we had detachments at every special forces group, and at the 160th and at the Ranger Bat. So everybody's getting different training from different people. Nothing was organized. We'd get together every once in a while. Like that 6 weeks of training we did at Fort Campbell was one of I think the first things that they did, where they tried to get like half the career field in one place to systematically train them on the things that we were supposed to be able to do all together. And it didn't exist very well. And there were guys that shouldn't have been there. And that's not a slight, really. It's just they shouldn't. You're not a ground pounder. You're not. I wouldn't want them in a firefight with me ever, So that's where it failed. And you can't just kick those guys off team, Like it's not like it was like special operations adjacent at best. And so just the way that it was structured, we had to hold on to guys that probably shouldn't have been there.
What were some of the key components you felt kind of were missing from training that you wanted to really implement?
Just that kick in the face.
Yeah.
That I want to see what you're made of. And everybody knows all the selection courses, all the pipelines. It's about putting you under stress so you can't pretend to be something you're not anymore. I want to see who you are. And I want to stress those guys out. And on top of that, I want to have a system where I can train them on all the things that I did not have, not to make it all about me, but like, you got to be able to run through a very structured pipeline and get all your crew serve weapon quals, to throw grenades, to do all the things, to get your demo quals, to understand land nav to a much deeper degree than I did when I first went out there, to get that education, to get more touch points with guys that have been there before, and get that like personal education through the training process, which it wasn't a thing. And I think our guys were much better for it. The generation of guys that went through our pipeline were way better than we were. And that should have been our goal. That was my goal. And I think we succeeded.
That's awesome. 4 years as an instructor. What did that teach you about leadership and developing people?
Oh, geez. Everybody's an individual. There are rules. So like in the training environment, I'm not supposed to have a relationship. I'm not supposed to be friends with my students, but my guys are in weather school for 7 months and they're getting kicked in the teeth every morning. And so, like after a certain point, they're not going to quit, and you can see it when they're not going to quit, right? Like I'm not selecting dudes for 7 months. So they go through like a 2-week selection down at Lackland, and then they come to me, and we kind of run like another selection course when they got to where we were. But like we'd go through the team with the combat controllers, but air traffic control is only like 3.5 months long. And after that, my guys are kind of on the training program that I have for them. And eventually I'm going to start treating them like teammates, because they're going to be my teammates. I'm going to have them over to my apartment on Thanksgiving. I don't care if it's against the rules. But like, so like those types of things where I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to advertise, but these guys have been in for a long time. And
the Air Force weather community, like it can't be that big, right? I mean,
it's not,
especially for special operations weather guys.
Right.
And good on you for realizing that, man. Cause there are, you do hear the stories about instructors that were just, dicks for the sake of being dicks, and who learns from that? I mean, I do think, like, to your point, you got to make it hard. It's got to be, so I would imagine like the human side of you battled with the instructor side of you, because like you're going at some point, you're out of the training environment and you're back on the line, and these dudes.
Yeah. And you go through phases, right? Like when I was a new instructor, and I think not having been through the pipeline before, I wasn't a slave to my experience the way a lot of other people were, right?
That's a good point.
And I didn't have any reach back moment to be like, this isn't the thing that made me a man or made me a combat controller or made me anything else like that. So like I wasn't emotionally attached to it. So I was able to see a lot of things with a little bit of clearer eyes, and then to make some of my own adjustments. I made plenty of mistakes, and I went through phases where like I was like too nice, too mean, all the other things. But I think, that the fact that a lot of those guys that were my students back then, and I was an E5, right? So it's not like I was an old dude. A lot of those dudes they're still my friends. We ended up on team together, and we're, we still talk, and we because they're just great human beings. At a certain point, you just have to recognize that, and you need to keep them within standards. You need to make sure they're ready for their follow-on courses and set them up for success. But I'm not going to select you for 7 months.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. What mistakes did you make early on that you learned from, you think?
Just being I got too involved in the process in the beginning. So like in the beginning, it was like, what's the plan? And it's like, we're just going to run guys on team the whole time. So like our first student in the pipeline. So there's 3 guys showed up in the beginning, and it's funny. So funny story is like, we went out to Lackland to visit the first 3 guys that were going to go through the SOWT pipeline. First guy, 6 feet tall, looks like he's going to make it. Next guy, normal height, a little bit pudgy, but strong. He might make it. Next, the guy after that is like 5'4", scrawny. I'm like, no way. So the 2 guys that actually show up at Keesler after the selection course, the pudgy guy and the short guy, pudgy guy ends up not making it. And he wasn't really that pudgy. He was super strong. He just had a hard time running and a few other things that he wasn't going to make it. But that short guy just had no quit in him, and he could run like the wind. And if you tell him to carry a weight, he just puts it on and goes. So he was a monster. But like, we made a mistake where I put him through the course with the combat controllers, and when he graduated, we just put him on another team. And so like, and then that's like running through selection for 7 months, right? So at one point he finally stopped. He was like 5.5 months in. He's like on his 2nd or 3rd team of controllers, and he's like, Sergeant, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm not going to do this twice. Why am I doing this again? And we were like, oh, we need to create a program for you guys that is separate, like, and give you guys a break. Like, I can't just run you into the ground for 7 months straight. And so it wasn't any like bright idea I had. He's the one that came out and said it. And then I'd gotten into some modes too later on where maybe one of the very best students I ever had, one day he looks at me and goes, hey, Sergeant, are you ever going to say that like you're proud of us? And I hadn't even realized that, like, it was very like straight faced. This was the way to do it. And I really liked this dude. Like, he was about my age, phenomenal athlete, super smart guy. And I was like, that's what started me like, hey, maybe I need to like tailor how I do this. I can't just do exactly what this other instructor does, because my students, I want something different. They're here for a much longer period of time. So I need to put more thought into what it is that I'm doing. So really learning from the students is what happened, because I wasn't smart enough to learn on my own.
How did some of your like negative experiences, with Air Force leadership and change your perspective on like the Air Force bureaucracy?
It's just, so when you're too far from the problem, you don't understand. And everybody has an ego, right? And it, like, we had this one guy who was in charge of the weather schoolhouse, who I like as a person. He was a good person. I think he probably went to church every Sunday. His kids are going to turn out great. They're going to go to great colleges, right? He's a good man, but also did Air Force-y stuff. Like, he ended up winning some annual award, and most of the write-up was the SOWT pipeline, which he wasn't really involved in at all. I came to him one time with a student who we had enough paperwork to get this kid out of the pipeline. I go, hey, it's going to be a waste of time sending him up to our finishing course up at Pope. Because like physically he's fit, but he has some behavior issues and all these other things. And we have an opportunity to get rid of him. Right. And so we sat down for a meeting, and this kid comes in there, and I like the kid, but like he's not going to make it. And we have cause to get rid of him. And the major listens to his story, and the major goes to the student. He goes, I'm going to choose to believe you and leave you in training. Like, and I'm sitting there, and I was just like I've never, like, just tell me that you don't value my opinion, bro. But like, I've been an instructor at that point. I'd been an instructor for a while, and it's just like, okay. So the guy ended up not making it through the finishing course as predicted. Like, and I didn't do anything shady about it. I didn't like call up and make sure that he wasn't going to make it, which wouldn't have been that hard. But he didn't have it up here in his brain to do it. We had 2 guys like that. That physically were fine, but I was like, they're not going to make it through the final school, and got overridden. And just, stuff like that, where you find out real quick that the Air Force loves to put like special operations things in their awards and on their recruiting videos, but they don't value it. They get upset if you're like, hey, this guy's not going to be special operations weather, but he would be a great conventional weather guy, It's like, oh, what do you mean? He can't do that, but he can do this. And it's like, yeah, bro. Like,
It's not the same job.
Yeah, it's like it's a totally different thing. But some of that stuff was super frustrating.
Tell me about meeting your wife during training, and how did that relationship develop in the special operations world?
I mean, well, she chased me around for a while until. Just kidding. So I come back from my first rotation.
I mean, look at me, bro.
I don't know if these lights do me justice, but I was a young, handsome man. I come back from that first rotation, train up for that training down in Florida. So she's at the headquarters of our squadron. She's doing like computer networking nerd stuff. I don't know. So I'm still kind of weird. I go down there, and our commander actually links us up. Like, so she saw me and thought, based on my last name, that I was going to look different, because she'd like help process our orders and stuff. And I think we'd spoken on the phone one time, and she sounds like a California Valley girl. So I didn't anticipate her having brown skin. But like, I remember I poked my head into her office, and I was like so focused. I'm like, I'm cutting my hair short. I'm doing this training because like I came off this rotation. I need this training. I was very serious about my job. I was thinking about assessing for something else. And I saw her, and I'm like, no, that's trouble. So I didn't even go. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't say hi. I didn't do any of those things, because I was like, that's a lot of trouble right there. And she ended up coming out of her office, and I was talking to someone else. They introduced us, and our commander was like, hey, you should take Trent out and show him around the town, type of thing. And that was that. I've talked about how like, if the universe or God or whatever says this is the way to go, I try not to fight it. And also one of the things that happened after that first rotation is like I had like a very closed off emotional capacity that had served me very well for like training and some other things. And you'd think that after that first rotation, I might become more closed off, but the opposite happened, because I saw how Q interacted with his wife. I saw the things that he wanted in his life and how much he valued that and all the other things. And after he passed, it was like, man, like it opened up a different part of me that was willing to like entertain, real relationships and like getting married and having kids, all those things that I had like, no, not going to happen. Before that, I'm not letting people get close to me. I'm not, opening up that part of me. So in a weird way, like that really set me up to have like an actual relationship and give it a chance to go beyond, like the 3 month and breakup thing.
Yeah. How did you balance like that new relationship with this training pipeline that you're building?
Poorly. So Monster energy drinks were new at the time. And we had cell phones. It wasn't that long ago. So, I remember we jumped in for one training mission. It was a reconnaissance mission, and we go to the OP or whatever. And, we were going to bed down. We were on second shift. I pulled 2 giant monsters out of my ruck, and the guys were like, what the? I'm like, yeah, dude, like we got to stay up tomorrow. I am not sleeping when we're like home, because I got a girlfriend and we're busy, yeah. I have a social life, and I'm spending all this time training and all this energy. So I'm constantly in a deficit. And then I wandered off into the woods, found Signal, and started texting her, like letting her know like, hey, how's it going? So it was very much not the experience that I anticipated that I was going to have while I was there. But it was awesome. Like she's fantastic. We became really good friends. We got John Mayer tickets one night, and I fell asleep in that concert because we'd just come out of, actually it was that field exercise that we were in. I think it was that one, but I hadn't slept in like 3 days, and I get back to her place, and our DO, he was a major. He was like, he called her and he's like, hey, I have these John Mayer tickets and I can't use them because his wife was sick or something. And she looks at me, she's like, can we go? And it's like in Pensacola. It's like an hour's drive from where we're at. And I'm so whipped that I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we go there, and we're like on the side, and the stage is like over here. So we're on like the side of the stage. And I remember I'm watching it, and it was great. Like that dude can play the guitar, but I kept just like passing out. And like the person next to me was getting upset because my head kept just being like right in front of them. But it was a good time.
What was it like dating someone who kind of understood your mission demands. I think this next part of this conversation, when it talks about marriage relationships, especially as it constitute working in, you know, high output military LE roles, you know, this is a conversation that isn't talked about, and we don't talk about marriage enough on the podcast because there's a lot of wives that are really the backbone of our families. But you know, what it's got to be cool meeting and dating someone and ultimately marrying someone that really understood what it is that you do.
Yeah, it's a double-edged blade for sure. Because she knows all the guys. Yeah. She knows, you know, like, and that kind of came later on, but in the beginning it was, I think the only negatives were like when I deployed, you know, the guys in the office would give her a hard time, and they'd say stuff like, I think maybe trying to be helpful, but like, hey, Trent might not come back from this. Like, you know, you're dating like the guy that, you know, gets into some stuff, but, you know, it was good. She understood that like I couldn't call all the time. So like we had that second rotation, we had Trent Tuesdays. I'd call once a week. I had an Iridium sat phone, but like I'm not gonna, you know, like, and I don't want to get her used to me calling her on a regular basis. It's a good because like she would understand if I was like when I'm up to Keating, you know, I'm like, hey, I won't be able to talk to you for a few days. I'm gonna be out of comms. Like I'm gonna go do some stuff and some things. And that's good because she understood why I couldn't, but also not great because she understood why I couldn't. You know, like it's both of those things at the same time. So her having an understanding like is good, but also, you know, later on when like, you know, they're like, hey, Trent, we want you to go do this thing. And she's like, seriously? Like, then she knows. She's like, this dude can't do it. This dude can't do it. This dude can't do it. And, you know, me, I'm like, my ego is like, well,
I want to do it.
Yeah, you get that by name request, you know, like I want to. I've earned this right to like burn myself to the ground and work harder.
I may or may not have told my wife a couple times, like, "Hey, they're making me go" when I volunteered.
Yeah. We're recording this. Yeah,
yeah.
That never happened.
Yep. I know we talked about kind of last night, like you were, you know, pretty much mentally preparing to assess for a tier 1 unit, and she kind of talked you out of going to the assessment for the higher tier unit because she didn't, you know, want you to die.
Yeah.
How did you handle that conversation, dude?
So it was Trent Tuesday, so I called back. I was deployed, and she just starts crying, and I was like, "Hold up, what's going on?" And she's like, "So they would send, you know, like I don't know how it happened. Either they send the names down, or they have a conversation with our folks. They come up with a list of names of guys that they think should go up there and assess." And my name was on the list, and she knew I was thinking about it. And you know, she's like, "They want you to go up there and assess, and I don't want you to go up there. I'll never see you again." Which she was, if I had passed selection, which is not a great probability. I think she's right, because I'm not good at separating home and team things and saying no and all those other things, right, to that stuff. So she's like, "I'm not gonna stay with you if you go up there and do it." And there was some background stuff that she was tracking as well. So it kind of like on my second rotation, I was like, dang, like I'm saving up my money to buy this girl an engagement ring. She doesn't want me to go up there. And the way things play out, like worked out, right? Because like then on my way out of country, I found out they were standing up a pipeline and they want someone to go stand it up. And she had just gotten picked up for an ROTC scholarship to go commission. So she needed to basically separate from the Air Force for 2 years and finish up college to commission into the Air Force. And so it was like, but I had to make the decision before knowing all of that, really. And so I was like, you know, based on that first rotation and where I wanted my life to go and where I wanted to end up with, you know, when I'm 60 years old, do I want to know my kids? Do I want to be around? Do I want to be present? Do I really need to go? Is she more important than me fulfilling what is in a couple ways like kind of a selfish thing, right? Like you could say it's selfless or whatever, but like I really wanted to try, but I weighed the options and chose her.
Looking back, was that the right decision?
Yeah. Yes.
Look right into the camera.
Yeah. Oh, it was an amazing decision. And it's one of those things, like we both make, you know, sacrifices in our career to get to where we're at. But man, I got 2 kids. I'm retired. I mean, and you know, all those bucket list things that you kind of want to get done, like I knocked those out mostly on my first rotation. And I got to spend a lot of time with my kids. And I don't think it would have gone that way had I gone up there.
Yeah, and I think, man, as I've gotten longer in the tooth and my mentors are getting older, like, you know, your perspective changes later on in life. And, you know, I had a mentor tell me one time, like, nobody gets on their deathbed wishing they'd, you know, got another deployment, and you just wish you to spend more time with your loved ones. So, I mean, I really do think it can be hard to balance some of that stuff in your mind, but that's why, you know, if you marry right, and there's plenty of dudes that have divorces that maybe didn't marry the right one, but, you know, finding that partner that understands you, but also understanding the sacrifice of marriage. I remember, man, like, always thinking marriage was this 50-50 thing. And the reality is it's 100-100. Like, both people have to be fully giving 100%, so that when you have a day where you're at 20% and she's at 100%, you know, she can help pick you up, and vice versa. And I think that's the true balancing act. And, you know, essentially when you're in the military, sometimes, like, that's the third person in the marriage, you know, and then when you're dual military, which we're going to talk about in a minute, like, you know, that's a whole nother dynamic. And then kind of just going into that, like, how do you balance your professional ambitions with your partner's concern, you know, and how does that work?
With volume.
Yeah.
I'm just no, I mean, it's so when I met her, she was like, I'm gonna become an officer. And I'm like, sweet. And I honestly didn't think I was going to stick around for 20 years. It was either assess and see what happens, or get out. So I was like, yeah, like, and it's one of those things. It's like, when I made the decision that I was going to marry her, it's like, we're going to jump on this train and we're going to go. But I ended up staying in. And so when you're balancing it out, like, it is one of those things where, like, when she was doing really well in her career, I would kind of have to backseat and kind of, you know, to, like, take care of the kids and all the backside stuff, kind of take a step back from work and not, you know, do all the things, and vice versa. Right. So, like, when I was on team, you know, she couldn't do all the things that she needed to do. She didn't have time to do all the things she needed to do to, you know, supercharge her career. And so you just kind of take turns, you know, pushing forward and laying back. But yeah, it can be a bit of a monster sometimes, because we have a lot of similarities, and, like, we're fairly driven. You know, we believed in what we were doing. Everything's important, you know, especially in the military environment, you know, where we came from too. It's like, you know, it's hard to not get in there and give all of your effort all the time, and to find that balance.
Do you find that, like, communication and expectations, like having those conversations with each other, do you guys find that helped at all? Or, I mean, did you guys, you know, really, or you guys just wing it?
Both. So when I was done being an instructor, I remember we sat down, and she was like, hey, I know you miss being on team with the fellas. Instead of getting out, why don't you just re-enlist? And I sat her down and I go, babe, when I was on team before, when we met, I was off station 330 plus days a year. And, like, it might not be the same, but, like, we're trying to manage expectations here. Like, if I go back on team, that's how it is. And she was like, yeah, of course. And to be fair, she wasn't pregnant yet. So it was like, you know, it was fine. As soon as we got back to Hurlburt, I got back on team. She got pregnant. And so, like, you know, then you have to wing it. Then it's all just, like, figuring it out. You know, she got pregnant. I deployed. I came back. We had a baby. I deployed. I came back, did the CRIF thing, deployed, and that was enough. So I missed, like, the first 2 years of my daughter's life, most of that stuff. And but then she hooked me up. We came to San Antonio so I could be a trainer again, which I swore I would never do.
Yeah. Let's walk through a couple of those deployments. Obviously, we're not going to dive through every one. That's just a lot of time. But where did you go? So you come out of training, go back in onto the team. Iraq, Afghanistan.
So it was kind of like I thought it was a punishment thing for being away from the career field for 4 years. So I get back, and the 160th rotations are notoriously difficult, and weather only, right? Like, so you're sitting behind, you're doing weather guy stuff, but you're the weather guy for, like, you know, this base, you know, like 3 or 4 bases in Afghanistan at a time of the 160th guys. And so the hours are insane, the expectations are insane, and no one wants to sit there and just do weather and not run around with their gun on a deployment, right? So I get back on team, roll right into a train up, and they're like, you're going to do the 160th rotation. I'm like, that's fair. Like, I've been gone. I'll do a 160th rotation.
And for those of you out there who don't know, the 160th is the premier special operations aviation that, you know, pretty much shuttles the Rangers, Delta, and SEAL Team 6 around for the most part.
Yep. And those guys, they're phenomenal. They're my favorite unit in the military. You know, those pilots, most of them they can do their own weather, like a 90% solution, because they all know everything about everything. They're psychotic about their training. But it's a lot of stress. It's long hours, you know, and you're only doing the missions that are like the premier missions, right? So like, and then they ask you questions and they know what they're talking about. So it's hard to get in as a weather guy, but once you're in and you're part of the team, you're rocking and rolling. It's sweet. But yeah, you're working, you know, 15, 18 hours a day, because you got to get there before them. You got to get all your stuff in order, and then they roll in for their mission briefs, and you got to sit there and watch all the missions. And it's kind of cool because you have like a headset attached to your computer, and you can run it through their radios. You can talk to them while they're flying. So if they have questions and they hit you up, they're like, "Hey, we're experiencing this right now." You're like, "Shh, crap. You're not supposed to be experiencing." Yeah, you know, like, and make some modifications, and then you have to be there until they get back, and do it all over again. So those were actually way more exhausting for me than ground pound deployments. But really a good time. You watch a lot of Kill TV and all that other stuff. But so I did that rotation, and then the next rotation was the same thing. So I get back, we're gonna have a baby. I'm supposed to be on CTO, your time off when you get back from your deployment. But they call me up and they're like, "Hey, we want you to go from this team to this team so you can deploy again sooner, and we need an NCO over here." So I went over to the other team, trained up again, went on another 160th rotation.
So there's multiple teams within, like, were you assigned to a squadron?
Yeah, so at the time, the all of us weather nerds had our own squadron, and all the teams would rip out at different times. So
you guys like different teams that support different units, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
So now we're all with the special tactics squadrons with the combat controllers, the PJs, and all those other guys, and so that squadron will rip out all at once.
So you guys deploy as like elements, like a JTAC, a weather dude.
Sometimes.
No. Okay.
I mean, my last rotation, it was we went as an Air Force team, which was really cool. But yeah, if you're not deploying as a singleton, you can do some of the special tactics teams and some of that other stuff. But so like the 2-3 deploys in the cycle, and then like one of our teams in our squadron would deploy in that cycle, right? So like moving from one team to another team within my squadron, it changed which cycle I was on, so I could go on the next deployment. So I got back to the 160th rotation again. Super gratifying, super stressful. My seat was still warm from where I'd left it basically the first time. And then, but those were cool. Like, I love those guys. I remember getting into the seat, and the dudes that were doing the daytime stuff with the super cool helicopters. One of those guys, and it's fun being in that office, because like if people find you and they know you're a weather guy and they know what you're talking about, like random guys that are flying around the country that find your phone number will call you and they're like, "Hey man, it's Chuck." Like, "What's up, Chuck? How can I help you today?" He's like, "What's the weather like over in like this region today?" It's like, "What's the airframe?" He's like, fixed wing." You know, like, you're like, "Okay, dude, you're good," or you're not, you know, like, but these guys who I wasn't really supporting, the daytime guys, I would show up early, and as soon as I logged on my computer, this CW would hit me up. He's like, "Hey man, 5 minutes. These are the grid coordinates. We're, you know, like, we need it now." So it's like, start my day off just like balls to the wall, knock it out, watch their mission go down, you know, schwacking all kinds of things and doing their stuff. And they come back and he'd be like, great job, man. We'll see you tomorrow." And then I have to do my normal job all night, you know, like, but it's super cool. And I love those dudes. Got off the second rotation with 160th, and I got home on CTO again. They called me up and they're like, "Hey, the 7th Group CRIF requested the full Air Force package. So they want a PJ, a combat controller, and a SOWT guy."
Just for you guys know, the CRIF, which are they still around? I don't even know.
They disbanded all the CRIFs.
Yeah. So at the time, and I'm not a special forces dude, this is my understanding, every special forces group had a CRIF at the time, a crisis response force, which is a pretty high level, you know, ground pounding, goes to a lot of, you know, really specialized DA train, like direct action training, kind of like the you know, the premier DA team for like the groups had them 3rd, 7th, 5th.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of bridged the gap between them and the tier 1 stuff. You know, like they were split up into a recce team, assault team, and then we had an intel fusion cell. But like if the Southcom commander, if something's happening in South America, they can get their guys deployed in theory, the CRIF faster than like you could put together the tier 1 package to get it out there. So they were on a 2-hour leash. And that was cool because I was the first SOWT guy to go up there as part of that package and try to set that program up. But man, it was just like, that's when I walked into the psych doc's office and I was like, I'm gonna murder this dude. Because I mean, I was just so stressed out. I had a baby. My wife obviously wasn't very happy with me never being home. You know, I'm doing.
Because you got by name requested to go to the 7th group after doing back-to-back 160th tours.
And I didn't even get to finish my like leave when I got home. You know, like I was home like 4 or 5 days, and they called me up. They're like, "You need to be there like tomorrow."
Oh God.
And that's one of those moments when she was like, "Somebody else can't do this."
And you got a kid, and you've missed a bunch of, you know.
Yeah, but it's also like, dude, I get to go be the first guy up there. Like, it's nice to like, you know, have a reputation and
it's that battle in your brain too of like, I really want to do this, but my family really needs me. But it's a fight. Like people who aren't driven, or I call it high strung. I'm high strung. You know, they don't understand. So like, oh, why? You know, but it's, you really want to be the best of your craft, but you also still want to be there for your family too. I fought that battle a lot of my career, man.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, it was really good. It was cool going up there. My home unit commander, him and I got into like a little exchange about what I should or shouldn't be doing for the CRIF. And I'm very much like I'm a weather guy first, and if they need me as a tactical guy, I can also go do that stuff. But like, I bring the most value to that organization as from the intel fusion cell, right? From the backside, maybe being there first. Working with those guys, and I did a lot of really cool training with the Intel Fusion guys and some of that stuff, and which really helped out when we actually became Special Reconnaissance and having a background and understanding of how a lot of that stuff works.
So where were you going with the CRIF?
We didn't. I mean, we only went to Belize.
Oh, it was a South America trip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you just train with them the whole time. You're just assigned to them for like a cycle. So like the CRIF has, it's not just like one CRIF. It's like, you know, 3 different teams or whatever. There were 4-month rotations, so it's that they're active for 4 months at a time, and so you go and you're assigned to them for 4 months. So you go on their training trips, you do all the stuff with them. You're on a 2-hour leash to blow out to anywhere in South America and all that other stuff. So it was a good experience. Set up in the Intel Fusion shop, had some disagreements with my boss, went to the psych doc. Man, like, and you know, like it was the first time in my life I started to feel like I was a little out of control, you know, and like it brought up a lot of the old stuff that I thought was ancient history. So that's kind of when I reached that point where I was like, I might need to talk to somebody because I'm starting to lose it.
Yeah, we'll cover that here in just a minute. What was it? You know, how was it working with all these different units? I mean, you've worked with 160th. Did you spend any time with the SEALs?
No, I only did one mission with the SEALs on my last deployment. And they wanted to talk about my helmet more than anything. Bunch of gear geeks.
And you've worked with us. What were you guys doing in Belize, and like kind of how did you prove the value of having like a weather guy embedded?
Well, that was So that was like the big SOWT exercise that year. So without saying anything real negative about SOWT, we got there first, and everybody was supposed to be there. They showed up like 3 days after we were in country. So we do all the Intel Fusion stuff. Recce team comes in. Recce team ends up in like the jungles and the mountains. You know, the scenario is we're going to PID a target. Assaulters are going to go in, take down the target, bring everybody back. The 160th was in town. So SOWT shows up. The leadership shows up, and they're briefing them, and they're like, hey, our guys are like getting black on water and food. Like, this is turning into like a real world, like, not great situation for our recce team in the middle of nowhere in Belize. And the command team was like, oh, well, just resupply them. And they go back and forth a few times until like the SOWT command was like, oh, you actually have real people in the jungle that are black on water and food. And they're like, yeah, dude, this isn't, they thought it was like notional. And we're not just playing on a map right now. This isn't a war game. Like, we actually have dudes out there training, and they're, so the mountains were socked in with clouds. I'd prepped the combat controller on the recce team. I thought that was a good place for him to be, was on the recce team, to give me weather reports and all that other stuff. So eventually we find this like 1 hour window. So I'm talking to like the 160th guy, weather guy that was there, and him and I come up with like this like 1 hour window where we could get in and actually get our guys out of there. And everybody was asked, like, what's the hardest part about being a weather guy? It's taking imperfect information that you're not sure about and going to a guy and potential real world consequences, and him asking you, are you sure that this hour is going to work out? And you look him right in the eyes and you go, yep. And that's what happened. He just stares at you and you stare back. He goes, okay, let's go. And then
you pray silently to yourself. Dear God.
You go throw up in the bathroom, and then like you come back and it's just like, oh geez, oh geez, oh geez. And you start hitting up the dude.
That's probably the longest hour of your life, bro.
Jeez. But it worked. I mean, it was one of those things too where I was the first SOWT guy up there. We'd done some training exercises out in like Savannah and a few other things, and weather had been kind of a factor, but nothing like too crazy. And these guys go in there, the birds go in, and the clouds like dissipate and they land. The assaulters get off, they do their thing, they accomplish their training requirements. Everybody loads back up on the birds. And as they're flying out, they're like, dude, we were flying out and those clouds were coming back in and closing everything back up and blanketing the mountains. It's like, yeah, I told you,
bro.
I knew what was going on. But the CRIF commander, who was super cool, could put more red man in his lip than any human I've ever met. That's when he was like, and the sergeant major too, who like smelled like cigarettes constantly because he smoked constantly. Like the old grizzled sergeant major. They were like, oh, that's why you're here. I'm like, that's why I'm here, guys. And they're like, cool, man.
See y'all next week, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked out.
Yeah, that's cool. You also told me another story that I thought, this is back in when you were in Iraq, but I thought it was an interesting one and one good for the episode. You mentioned like you had this frustrating mission in Iraq where you had to babysit some regular Air Force guys, like doing a runway assessment, dude. Tell that story. Okay,
I wasn't babysitting. You guys did great. You were great.
My bad. I'll bleep that word out.
So there's one of the things that we do as part of special tactics, right? Is we assess airfields, see how many times you can land and take off, planning for invasions and all the other stuff. So we on my last deployment, we kind of got a call, and everybody's like, this call is from the White House. We need to go into Balad, which we hadn't been at for like 5 years as Americans, and assess the runway and the parking aprons, because we want to give these Iraqis F-16s. And is it still good? Because we haven't been there, and there's been attacks and all kinds of other stuff, and it looks like The Walking Dead out there. And we're like, yeah, we can go do that. So first we had to smuggle our equipment into country because all the rules, all the boots on ground and what you could fly with and in and out of Iraq was really, really restrictive and stupid at the time. The Air Force was all about it. Like, you can't take generators, you can't take fuel, you can't take all the other stuff. And it's like, hey man, I can't drill a hole in the runway without a generator. So I got to have it do my job. So we built these boxes that said aircraft parts on them, and we gave them to like the smaller planes that went in and out of the country. We gave it to a guy who was super cool, got into Iraq and picked up our equipment, and it was good. But anyway, we sit on the State Department compound for like 2 weeks. The White House is playing politics. There's tribal people fighting, so they're not letting us. We're not getting the green light, and we're supposed to go. My team and I had the pavement certification. I'd gone to the course because no one likes to go to the pavement course because it's the pavement course. But I'm a weather guy, so I'm like, I'll go to anything you tell me to go to if it's going to provide value, right? Like I'm still like in that mindset, like little brother, like I want to do more.
The Army was the hazmat course, bro. Anybody who had the hazmat course, you had to like do all the transport of hazmat material. And, yeah.
But we needed it, and it came in handy. So like I was the team sergeant, I was the weather guy, and I was the airfield guy on that rotation. But so like I was min force for that, and we had like a regular Air Force crew that the C-17 guys wanted to send in there as their own guys, right? Like, well, we trust our guys to go do this. And it was like 3 or 4 Air Force people and 1 Air Force cop as their security guy. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to roll with the SEAL team as our security element, and also there were private contractors out there as well. but whatever, bring your guy. Kind of long story. My team ends up leaving. And as soon as like literally their plane is leaving, what is it? Baghdad. And the phone call comes through. The little Roshan rings. I pick it up. It's like, hey, we're a go. We got to go in like 20 minutes. And I'm like, son of a, like, and I have all this gear that I got to pack out. So I pack all the gear. I get it over to the terminal to load it all up by myself. These Air Force guys show up. The SEAL team shows up. They're like, when did you get that helmet? And I'm like, that's a weird question to ask, but I don't know. And I've had it for a while. He's like, well, we just barely got ours. I'm like, cool. Anyway. And then I told him, I'm like, I'm an Air Force weather guy. So like, maybe you should have joined the Air Force. But we went out there and we did it. But like, I put the whole plan together. The Air Force team didn't have equipment that was going to work. They didn't have comms. They didn't have anything. And so like, I took real offense to it. Maybe not offense, but like, I was sensitive to it because in the Air Force, people will be like, you guys are cowboys and you guys don't know what you're doing. And like the regular Air Force pilots wanted their guys to go because their guys know what they're doing. I'm like, but your logistical planning, your safety and tactical considerations, your equipment, none of this stuff would have happened without the AFSOC dudes. Like, you know this, right? Like, this is what we're designed for. Like, you're going into a hostile environment. You guys don't know what's going on. But I mean, it all worked out. We landed. They didn't help unload the helicopters. And so I'm running all over the place, unloading all the equipment off the helicopters. The private security guys were cool, but they kept coming to me like I was the boss instead of going to the major, which was hilarious, but we got it done. But I did get back to Kuwait where we were staging out of, and my boss calls me and he's like, one of the best commanders I ever had. And he's like, hey Trent, how'd it go? And I just screamed into the phone for like 20 minutes. And I was like, these mother beep, like they let the phone flatline for a while. But it's just like, that's one of my issues with the Air Force, right? Is like, hey, like, you guys, just because like we grow our hair out, just because we wear non-standard uniforms, just because we do all these things, it doesn't mean that we're not, like, we do that. We're allowed to do certain things and we get away with certain things because our level of professionalism and training and the fact that we will never not get the job done. That's why. It's not because any of that other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, how do you handle working with people who don't understand the mission?
Not great. I mean, it's just, it's one of those things. It's not their fault. Like, if they don't have the experience, like when we took off, the 160th Birds pick us up and we're flying out there and they do a test fire on their miniguns and they're like, oh my gosh, are we getting shot at? And like, it's like, bro, like, we've been in country forever. Like, you've never been on a helicopter that test fired their weapons once they cleared the populated area. Like, no, we're not getting shot at. It's fine, and they're all super excited, and it's hard not to be a little bit jaded, but they don't understand the tactical situation. They don't understand how to talk to anybody. They don't understand how to mission plan, and so yeah, you just get angry and do more work yourself, which is what I did.
What did that teach you kind of about the gap between conventional and special operations forces?
I mean, it's weird because you don't think about it, right? You just live in your world. And it's like going to Planet Fitness when you're on team, because we all are like, I'm the weakest dude in the world and I suck and I can't lift more weights and blah, blah, because you're surrounded by monsters. But you go to Planet Fitness and you're like, am I the strongest dude here? Like, don't
set off the clunk alarm.
It's one of those things where it's like, you just don't think about it. And all the things that have been beaten to your head over the years and all your experience and all your training, you just realize that everybody doesn't have that, and it just reinforces the reason for your existence, right? And why it's so important to do things the way that we do them. And I'm not saying that we're perfect and we're not great in every situation. We're not the tool that you use for everything, but that there is a difference. And without the special tactics, special operations guys, I think it's easy to take all that stuff for granted because it just happens in the background and people don't even see a lot of it. But it's super important.
Yeah. And then you've talked about, just, how you liked being on the team and being around the guys. And then obviously you became, leadership, losing, Q and Robbie and, obviously that really kind of shaped who you are as shaped who you are as a leader, but also how you mentored people. How did you approach relationships, you know, with guys that you served with in light of, you know, kind of those losses and processing some of that stuff?
I mean, I don't think it negatively affected anything. You know, like sister service guys, I never made like good friends again after that. Not really. And maybe it's just because I'm not good with names. Um, but the way that I dealt with, you know, my students and my teammates, it's like you just want them to be as prepared as possible, right? Like you want to give them the best fighting chance to get out of those situations, or to be that guy to help someone get out of those situations and not have to carry that guilt if they don't have to, right? So it just kind of reinforces everything from the training to how important people are, to understanding family life. Like if my guys are going through something or if they need more time with their family, finding a way to, you know, I think like most of us, I'm way better at telling you to go spend time with your family than I am going to spend time with my family. But just making it a focus item and understanding that, you know, those things are also super important. I think that shaped a lot of that stuff.
How did you balance like getting close to people while also knowing the risks of, you know what I mean, combat and what you guys do for a living?
I didn't worry about it too much. You know, like you can't live your life in fear. Just like when you're in a firefight, you can't not do your job just because you could get hit. You know, and in a lot of ways, it made me a way more positive person. It's like, man, I'm gonna enjoy today. I'm gonna be your friend. I'm gonna be nice as much as I can to everyone around me. I'm gonna create these relationships. I want to leave a positive impression when I leave a room. I want to make someone's day better. I don't care if we're gonna be friends for life or not. Like the world doesn't have to be terrible, you know? And the guys that have died wouldn't want us to like be moping around, you know, drinking ourselves into oblivion because they died. Like they wouldn't be here drinking themselves into oblivion, you know, just so like you got to enjoy your life. You got to enjoy the gifts that are presented to you. You got to make those positive relationships. You got to give people the benefit of the doubt until they give you a reason not to. You know, approaching life with a certain level of positivity and maybe a naivete is a lot more fun than being skeptical and constantly worrying about somebody dying. You know, we've lost some more guys since then, and it's not fun. It's not great. But man, like, what are you gonna do? What would they want you to do?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome segment. Yeah, let's take a break real quick.
Okay.
So there's definitely kind of one thing that you and I talked about, like kind of during your career, which is super non-traditional. And, you know, this is a crazy time in your life, but it was obviously COVID. And, you know, COVID hit, you're dual military, and your wife, you know, she had a deployment she had to go on. And so your wife deployed to Afghanistan for 8 months during COVID while you were home with 2 kids, bro. Please walk our audience, who is like 94% male as of right now, like what that was like.
Yeah, I think I actually got that wrong. I think she was in Saudi Arabia, that one. It doesn't matter. She was
I
gone
probably
for
just
8
wrote
months.
it down wrong. Because I know you wouldn't miss your wife's stuff, so that was my fault.
Yeah, her deployments, I'd memorize them. Yeah, so we got to San Antonio, right? Like just background, like we came back to San Antonio so we could spend time together as a family. And I think I told you this, like AFSOC was really good about when I was on team. She got 0 deployment notifications or anything. As soon as we got to San Antonio, they were like, "You're deploying." And then she came home.
Was she also an AFSOC or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she ended up becoming a personnel officer.
Mm-hmm.
She worked at the AFSOC headquarters while we were there. She did a few different things. Yeah. So like, we know that like deployment taskings definitely came her way that she was qualified for, now, but we never heard about it because they were like, Trent's on team, she's not going. So AFSOC's good like that. But as soon as we got to San Antonio, they deployed her. She comes back. We have another baby. She deploys again. This time, she was only supposed to be gone for like 4 months because she was supposed to set up a program when they stood whatever base back, a PSAB, I think, back up during that time. And then COVID happened. So it ended up being like an 8-month deployment. So I have, you know, the boy was probably less than 2 or 2.
Oh my God.
So my daughter was like 6 or 7. And so we got stuck kind of in the house together for a long period of time without my wife. And it was, just like a deployment. It was awesome and terrible all at once.
Dude, I don't even know where to start. I think I have so many questions, but like what was your key to success? Because I do, like, my best friend, single dad, they obviously share custody, but and sometimes there's a lot of strength. You learn a lot through that. And I think the special operations training and mindset probably definitely helps. But like, how did you survive that?
We ordered a lot of food. I mean, it's just the hardest part is just the logistics. Like, it's funny, like, being a dad, there are certain things that rub me the wrong way when people say stuff. They're like, oh, like, my husband is like babysitting our kids. It's like, no, he's their dad.
Yeah,
That's not babysitting.
Yeah.
I love my kids as much as my wife does. I'm not mom, but I'm dad, so it's fine. So like loving them and all that other stuff is not a problem, but it's just the hardest part was my wife was deployed. They had no problem getting supplies. So she didn't understand the whole toilet paper debacle. Trying to order food from the grocery stores.
To this day, I will never understand. Like, hey, the world's gonna end. Buy fucking toilet paper. Like, I'll never get that.
Well, neither do I. It was a weird thing.
Maybe it was just a shitty situation and everybody.
Well, my son was still in diapers too, so I did manage to get like a year's supply of baby wipes, and that wasn't a problem. But I mean, it's just the logistics, making sure everybody's fed, keeping the house somewhat clean, trying to check in on work. Work got real silly during that time, like chill. I ended up on staff at the training command, so we're just working from home. In the beginning, our first meeting for the day wasn't until like 10 or 10:30 in the morning. So I'm staying up with my kids and we're watching TV and we're hanging out. We're running around barefoot outside. Like, we don't care. Like,
yeah,
I never took COVID seriously, especially not for my kids. Honestly, the COVID deployment was not harder than the other ones. So she's done 3 deployments since we got back to San Antonio, but like getting the kids to school, picking them up on time, homework, all of those other things, like the regular life with the kids when she's deployed is way harder than the COVID time was. My wife would be like, why are you ordering so much food? It's like, because the grocery store doesn't have food. She's like, I don't understand. I'm like, neither do I. But,
yeah.
Like the kids are like, we want whatever, Chili's tonight. I'm like, we're ordering Chili's. They're going to come to the door, like, but we just went a little feral. Our next door neighbors were super cool. He was a retired Marine fast guy. And him and I had we put our equipment together and made like a garage gym. So we'd work out outside, run around with the kids, go to parks. People are all freaked out wearing masks. Like, I'm not putting a mask on my kids. So like it was weird, but also awesome. I just got to hang out with my kids.
Yeah.
And we had a good time.
Did like, what do you think helped you kind of manage that time? Was it like routine? Did you finally because I'm sure, imagine like the first month, like, oh, school, we're wild. And then it's like, did you like crave because kids crave like structure and routine.
Yeah. I mean, we probably didn't have as much of that as we should have. But like, I have my work time where I do stuff and the meals are like the real structure at that point is making sure that they're fed. But I mean, I don't even know all the things that we did. It was a good time. I don't know. My wife came home and she was like, how come no one's wearing shoes? And it's like, what do we need shoes for?
Yeah.
Like, we're having a great, like, like the kids were tan and
welcome back to the jungle.
Yeah. But like when she deploys too, like there are certain things where she runs the house when she's home, but the way that things are like laid out, like my brain just works different. I'm like, why would we have all of his diapers here versus here? So just rearranging the house a little bit. I have my own routine for like laundry and how to do things and get everything put away. Schedules to clean the house and all that kind of stuff, but you figure it out. It's not the end of the world.
What were the unexpected positives from that experience?
Got real close with my kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dude.
Yeah. The negatives were like, and it was just like the other deployment. Like, I think especially though after that one, like my son was pretty young and he struggled a little bit, and it's hard for a mom, I think, especially to come home and her kids go to dad for everything. And them not being super close to her for a little bit and having to rebuild that relationship. And just seeing that was hard, but
Yeah, and I think that's something, men don't consider too. Like there's a dichotomy for military women that have to leave their kids, especially good moms. You know what I mean? Like I can imagine that was just as hard for your wife, but for completely different reasons. So I can't imagine, that's the tough dual military family thing that, probably doesn't get talked about a lot. But how did your perspective on your wife's kind of sacrifices change it after that experience in light of you being the one home as she goes?
Yeah, it was humbling. I have a much greater appreciation for the people that get left behind. Because then I was the one that was home. And I have 2 kids. I think this was the first deployment she went on, but like the refrigerator just died. And I'm like, man, we don't have money to just go buy a brand new refrigerator. So like I have to find like a refrigerator. I have to get the old one out of the house. I got to get the new one put in the house. Like it's not like I live with family members nearby and we were still fairly new to the city. So it's just like little things like that. And just the grind of every day. Like deployments are like vacations. You only need to worry about your job.
It's the ultimate boys camping trip, man.
Dude, it's so great. But on her Afghanistan rotation, she got into some like sketch situations. A lot of stuff happened in that one. Like a home station, my commander got killed, but she was also in some sketch situations. So I gained a greater appreciation for staying home. She got a little bit closer to some of the stuff I did, and she had to deal with some stuff when she got home, and we talked through it. And being able to help her through some of that stuff and her understanding that I'd been there before, and her kind of like going back in time through in her brain and thinking about the stuff that I'd done and how it had affected me. I think it really brought us closer together overall.
I forgot about that thing with your commander. What that was an active shooter on Lackland, right?
Yep. So that was a former student came back and he was all pissed off and took a shot at the first sergeant. Commander jumped in and he killed the commander and then committed suicide.
And that was your commander at the time?
Mm-hmm. So I came back. That was the first deployment because I only had my daughter. I flew my daughter out to California for her 3rd birthday. We came back, and I think that was a Friday, and I didn't really need to go back to work, but I did, and that was the day it happened, and that was weird. And he was like a weather officer, SOWT officer, and so my wife was deployed. I had my kid, and then he gets killed, and then we kind of deal with just that, and then everybody's going to come in town for the funeral. And so everybody with a gray hat is hitting me up. So like I'm not processing anything because I'm dealing with logistics of getting everybody into town and telling everybody what happened. And then there's like the color guard. You have to have one of every color hat. And so like all the other stuff and then watching his wife. And that was a rough time trying to deal with that. But like, that's one of those things too, where man, like there's like the early stuff that happened, but like when that happened, like that was tough and you don't expect it to happen home station, but being able to go pick up my daughter and then like crawl into bed with her at night and my wife's gone and she's like, do you want to watch fights? I'm like, yeah, I want to watch fights. We turn on like UFC. We had like Fight Pass and she liked to watch UFC fights when she was little. And she knew I liked to watch it. So she would be like, hey, at night, you want to watch fights, Dad? And I was like, yeah, let's watch some fights. That I think that makes things a little bit easier.
Were you there that day?
Yeah. So we were in a different building. So he went up to the headquarters building, which is kind of up on a hill over on Chapman Annex, and we were down at the bottom. We were, it wasn't really a course, but we ran all the students that were in between pipeline courses, like in between Airborne, SEER, and all these other courses. When they'd come back to Lackland, we'd run their workouts and do all that stuff. So we got the active shooter notice, and on Lackland, no one is supposed to have a pistol or a weapon. Every instructor had a pistol in their hand in like 30 seconds. And the students, freaked them out a little bit too. None of them complained or narked or anything. And, but yeah, you gather up all the students in one area, you fortify your position. We didn't know what was going on. I'm not just going to start running around with a pistol in my hand, whether, some Air Force cop was going to just shoot you, But I mean, yeah. So we just fortified them all. We checked all their bags. We're like, hey, we're gonna dump all your backpacks out. And the students were like, cool, yes, go ahead.
Why? What was the thought process there?
Well, because this dude had been a student for a long time. And as soon as we found out it was a student, it's just like, hey, like we're just going to go through all your bags, make sure there's nothing crazy and real quick. And
how did you find out about his death? I mean, did that get put out really quick or?
Yeah, that was quick. I mean, there are dudes in the building that, you know, we all worked with and knew, and they saw what happened and all the other stuff. So that was fast. And then all the other stuff that happened afterwards. But it was weird because my wife's downrange dealing with some stuff, and then I'm back home dealing with some stuff that we didn't expect to happen. And that was a tough deployment.
How well did you know him, their commander?
Well, he'd been my commander at Hurlburt, at the weather squadron before it broke up. So like, you know, we weren't friends, but like I knew who he was. When I got to Lackland and I walked into his office, I could make a joke about him gaining weight in San Antonio because everybody gains the San Antonio 15 because the food is amazing. But yeah, he wasn't a stranger.
Yeah. What was his name?
Schrader. Wild Bill.
Retirement decision and, you know, kind of your transition as we kind of transition into the back half.
So I used to be a woman. Just kidding. I'm not an ABC.
Oh, dude. His real name is Trina. After 20 plus years, you chose to retire rather than continue climbing the ranks. What drove that decision?
Like I said, they put me on staff. So like when SOWT became Special Reconnaissance, I'd spent so much time on the training side, and I was an E7 at the time. So they're like, you are the lead guy for this movement on the training side, which is where most of the stuff has to happen immediately, right? To change the training pipeline and to do all those things. So I ended up doing all that, which was cool, to stand up the new career field and to rework the pipeline again. And to watch other guys do most of the busy work, you know, like, and that part was hard because I think I know the best way to do things. I have a lot of experience, guys, like, but you have to give the next generation of guys the opportunity to do it the way that they want to do it. And, but after overseeing all that and everything stabilized, it's like I made E8 and I'm just sitting in a cubicle with other old dudes and it's fun and they're my friends and I love them. But man, I don't want to rehash our deployments or how bad our knees feel or how much money we're investing every day. You know, like I need to be around young people. I need something else, and that wasn't for me. So between that and my wife's third deployment, I was like, I'm definitely retiring. And then when she came back, I'm like, I turned into like that not bitter spouse, but I was like, we're not doing this anymore. And it was scary, but it all worked out. So we both.
How many times did you have to tell your 06 that you really didn't want to go to the Pentagon?
Oh my gosh, dude! Like, I'm used to, you know, you're on team, and I think this is what all comes back to. Like when you're on an operational team, and like whether it's an 05 or your team sergeant or anything, you just get used to a certain level of, if I say something and I'm serious about it, you know I'm serious about it. Like I don't need to explain this over and over again. And I'm not stupid. Like I'm not smart, but I'm not stupid. And if I say I don't want to be an E9 and I'm not going to the Pentagon, and I say that more than twice, and you're trying to like talk, you know, well, I don't know. Lots of guys say that they're gonna get out and then they make chief. I'm like, no, I took my name off the list, bro. Like I am getting out. So far too many times did I have to explain to him that I was not gonna go to the Pentagon, not gonna become an E9. And it's no shade on the guys that do, like good for them. It just wasn't for me.
How or what was it about staff work that just really didn't fit your, you know, personality?
I hate computers. I hate emails.
I hate people. I hate cubicles.
I hate the stupid processes that we do. Yeah, all of it. The stupid lights, the walking into the building, being surrounded by a bunch of old retired people. Everything's an emergency, even though like everybody takes that like operational mentality, which is super good on team, and then they transfer it into staff life. And they act like people are dying. And I'm like, bro, it's an email. Everybody settle down. It's not the end of the world.
How was taking off that uniform for the last time, dude?
Weird. It was weirder than I thought it was gonna be. I mean, like,
Mhm.
so like we started the podcast, which helped a lot, I think, because I didn't lose all connection with everything. I didn't move to a different state and just say goodbye to everybody and ghost everything, which I think really worked out. But man, you get home after all the stuff and you take it off, and you're like, that's weird.
Now what? No.
Yeah, and I didn't expect it to be weird as much as it was. But then like you're like, dude, I'd spent 20 years wearing this uniform occasionally, and it's what it represents more than actually how often
Sure.
I really wore a uniform. But yeah, it was weird. And then you kind of go through that process, and my wife was cool about it. She let me just like hang out for a little bit, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get a real job or just do this other stuff. And
It really is weird when it's all and then all of a sudden, like, everything changes, man, and you want it, right? It's like when, it's like being on a deployment. All you talk about is deployment when you're going home. And when you get home, all you do is talk about your
this
deployment.
sucks, man.
Yeah.
I want to go back there where life was easy.
Yeah, it's a wild. And then like, you have this identity in, your service. And, cops and firefighters go through this thing too, but it's really big in the military, especially I think even more in the special operations community where it is more team and you're with dudes that are all driven. And then one day, like, the whole time you're in, like, I'm going to retire. It's going to be great. Then you retired and like, now what?
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of like mindset or preparation of kind of what you were going to do in the next life or?
No.
Yeah.
I'm the worst guy to ask for retirement advice. I mean, my wife gets mad at me because my life works out. I'm like, just have a positive attitude. Things will work out, but like I didn't do my out processing checklist. There's like the skill bridge program, and I didn't do a real skill bridge. So what I did was we have our special operations, whatever, recruiting squadron in San Antonio, and they needed some help on the marketing side. And I knew those folks, but they weren't signed up for the skill bridge program, and they didn't have time to like get it official. So I just stopped going to work and started working over there. But I'm like, the spirit of it I was doing, but I just didn't go through like all the official channels and get everybody's permission. I just like, I'm just going to go do this. And I showed up in my civvies and I helped them out when they needed help. And they were short-handed at the time, and helped them make like Instagram posts and a few other things and fun stuff. And so like, no, I don't do all the paperwork the right way, and I didn't have a plan. I didn't finish my checklist. I didn't finish up my VA stuff before I got out. But it all worked out.
Good for you, bro. That shit never happens in my life. So you should write a book on how you make that happen.
I don't know.
It's going to be like,
would be one page.
Just be positive, bro. That's how it works. Good. I do love your positive. I told you on multiple occasions, man. I mean, I think I was as looking forward to this podcast, as almost as a listener, because we've had a lot of heavy stories on here, and I think it's good to tell the real stories. I mean, we've actually talked about some heavy stories on this podcast, but I love your your tenacity just to have fun and to smile and to find the goodness in life, because I think for people that listen to this channel as well, like there's something in that too, right? Like mental health is just that. It starts in the mind and in the brain and how you think and then how you speak. And so that's one thing I love about your personality. I mean, you and I were involved in another venture recently that was, somewhat business related. And you and I were just, we just have fun and joke and, almost still have that childish humor, which again, dude, keeps it fun. And you've been a reminder to me too, like, bro, don't take yourself so seriously, And we talked a lot last night. I mean, you have a podcast. We're going to dive into it. That's actually how I actually found about you first. I was talking to somebody who was building my website that's kind of in our same industry that you and I mutual know, and they're like, hey, yeah, look at the One's Ready, website. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, dude, because I barely even watch my own podcast. And so I got on your website, and your website was dope, dude. For all of you guys, like One's Ready, we're going to dive into that and talk about the podcast. But you guys had an awesome website, and that's the first time I'd heard your name. And then, and then obviously we link up, and I'm like, man, we need to get you on the show. So kind of tell us about the origins of the One's Ready podcast and kind of breaking that silent professional mold.
Whew. So I was getting prepped, unbeknownst to me, to break that mold. So in the younger years, especially when I thought I was going to assess and do all those other things, I was very much social media. No, don't put my face on the internet. After my first deployment, there was like a weather magazine and my face ended up in it, which is stupid. But still, I called them and said, take that picture off the website. Because, you know, like, that's how we all came up is like, you do not put your stuff out there. Like, you are a target. And I'm not saying that that's not still true to a certain extent, but.
Yeah, you and I were talking too. Like, neither one of us have a lot of pictures from our time in the service because that was like a faux pas when I was, for the most part.
Jeez. Yeah, now I'm like grumpy old boomer being like, kids these days and sharing their location and all that other stuff. So when we got to San Antonio, there's not a lot of gray hats. And I made friends with this guy whose retirement is actually this week. And he was doing some media stuff. And there's not a lot of SOWT guys to choose from for this like recruiting video he was doing. And he was like, Trent, I need you to do this. And I'm like, come on, man. He's like, I need you to do it. I'm like, all right. So I go in there and I do the interview and they're like, oh, you did a great job. And I'm like, okay. And then like the recruiting people are coming to me after that being like, hey, people don't know about SOWT and we want to do like Facebook Live things. And at a certain point, like you see that video go and like hundreds of thousands of views or whatever it was. And you're like, well, crap. You know, like what does it matter now? Everybody knows like my name and rank is on YouTube. So I started doing all that other stuff and it just kind of started opening my eyes and getting into the recruiting world a little bit more. You know, as I gain in rank as well, and I start like caring about the career field in a kind of a different way, and how do we control our messaging, and how do we talk about these things? How do we explain what we do in a way that's going to be accurate, but also, you know, show the good and the bad, and be honest about it too. I don't think we get anything out of being like sunshine and rainbows, and we don't get anything out of making it sound like we're in gunfights every day either. So started getting into that world, and then, you know, like a couple things happened. That the SR thing started to change, and I was kind of like the head training guy for that.
SR, what's that?
Special reconnaissance.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. And then
is that what SOWT became, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the guys at the Pentagon. It was that's a whole other story, but we were heading that way. So this guy that was doing like a PJ thing, helping kids train to become PJs, had me on his thing and he was like, dude, you have to have an Instagram page because like I'm getting a million questions about this SR thing. And I was like, dude, I don't do social media like at all. He's like, you got to do it. I'm like, fine. So I start the Special Reconnaissance Instagram page, which I've since given away to the fellows in the career field because they have more relevant information than I do. And then I went on his thing, and then like, I don't know, a few weeks later, he calls me. He's like, do you want to do a podcast? And I'm an E7, active duty still. And he's like, I'm going to get another PJ and a combat controller to come on with us and do a podcast. And like I said, if someone asks me something and it might be scary, but it feels like the right thing to do, and it feels like, you know, like fate has prepped me for this moment.
Yeah. What stands in the way becomes the way.
Oh my goodness. It's super uncomfortable, but like, how do you say no at that point? You know, like, I don't want to be the face for the career field. I'm not, you know, like, I think I'm like a lot of other people, but it's like, man, like the guys that have gone through the pipeline, the generation that came after me, the generation that's going through now, those guys are incredible. But if none of them want to do it and I get out there and I can message for them and tell people about how great it is, like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And so we started the podcast. The guy that actually gave me that call, he had life things and he went a different direction. So it's just the three of us now, you know, pararescue, combat control, and myself. And we are the official, unofficial podcast of the United States Air Force, is what we call ourselves.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
How much pushback did you get from the community kind of putting your face out there?
Fair bit, yeah. So my fun story. So I was in a meeting, and our wing commander, our 06, and I was in this meeting because I was working on all this stuff. He was like, hey, we're starting this new thing where we're bringing kids off the street with like an open contract for special warfare in the Air Force. So you could either go TAC-P, pararescue, combat controller, or special reconnaissance. And I'm like, cool. He's like, we got to get the messaging out there. He's like, I've already told everybody we got to get the messaging out there and we got to work on this. And we're going to tell everybody. And I'm like, okay. And then he wasn't like talking directly to me, but like he had to know, you know? So I go to the fellas that night and I'm like, here's what we know. We got to get this out there fast. This is breaking news. And this, the most important thing is it affects the folks that are signing up, right? The people that are thinking about it, they want all the information. The recruiters already know that it's kind of happening, but they don't have like the good information. And a lot of the recruiters use our podcast to keep, abreast of what's actually happening. So we go on that night, we record it real quick. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect, but we got most of the salient points or most of the details to the audience, I think. So we release it quickly. I show up to work the next day and everybody's talking about it. Like everybody. And my commander, the group commander, who's another 06, calls me into his office. And I'd never had a fellow beret wearer yell at me like in that way, like especially like an officer. I had disagreements with other enlisted dudes, like, and there's team room stuff that happens, but no one's ever like sat me down and berated me for like 20 minutes, which was weird. Anyway, he made it more about himself than anything else. Didn't write me official paperwork because I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not wearing my uniform. I'm not saying I'm speaking for the DoD and these other things. And also I'm putting out information that your boss wants out there. So I get done with that, and that was fine. And then I go over to our dining facility because we're the Air Force to get
a restaurant.
lunch.
Restaurant.
It's got a Michelin star. So I go over there to get lunch, and so his boss, the guy that had told us that we would need to get the messaging out there, he's there. I see him like across the way, and he's like, Trent, come here. So I'm like, hey, sir, what's going on? He's like, dude, saw the podcast. He's like, maybe missed a couple things. He's like, but like, you're like 95%, like, great job. So like, I have 106.
Did you tell him you just gotten berated?
That screams at me. I think I said it. I was like, well, you might want to tell Colonel so-and-so.
Oh, Bob over there just chewed me out.
And I was like, I'll go to legal, make sure everything's copacetic, but it was. But it's just funny because like in the same like hour period, 106 screams at me, and one of them who's more of a forward thinker was like, great job. Like, we need to get this stuff out there, and your platform is amazing. So it's been a lot of that, like, and sometimes it's the same person is this is the greatest thing ever. You guys are clowns and I hate you, depending on which misunderstanding we're dealing with that day. But over time, I think there were a lot of people that in the beginning were like, you shouldn't be doing this. You're profiting off, your experience, which you shouldn't be doing. And it's like, then what, like, how do you expect me to get the message out? What should I do? And it's like, you should do it for free.
What would the Navy SEALs do?
Oh my gosh. And it's like, hey, like, I have to buy this equipment on my own. Like, I got to keep the lights on. And it's not like I haven't bought a Ferrari yet. I'm not making money.
People have no idea about podcasts. And you and I have laughed about this. It's like, I got a YouTube channel. I think I've got 30,000 subscribers. People are already like, dude, you're buying a new house. I'm like, bro, I haven't even made enough to pay last month's like subscriptions to the services I have to even push this out. It's hilarious, man.
I'm still deep in the negative when it comes to the podcast.
Most of us that podcast do it because we like it and we have fun. The Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, Jocko, like those guys, they're the diamonds in the rough, man. The rest of us are all, somewhat struggling.
We're all wandering in the desert.
Yeah, that's why we're all hustling t-shirts and whatever other side thing we can do to just, what made you decide like the recruiting and awareness mission kind of was worth the risk?
People just didn't know about us. Everybody knows about the SEALs, the Rangers, the Green Berets, even MARSOC, even though MARSOC doesn't I don't think they advertise, but they only take guys from within the Marines.
And I think they're going away.
Again? Well, no, they just got kicked out of the country the first time. They didn't go away.
Oh, I thought somebody said MARSOC was like going away. Maybe
because the Marines hate.
Sorry, let me edit out this rumor.
Whatever. We'll find out. It's just one of those. It's very important, and people just didn't hear enough about it. And I'm passionate about what the fellas do. And it's not just the SR guys, it's the controllers, it's the J's, it's everybody. And it's not like I think they're better than everybody else. Maybe I do. I think they're a little bit better. But they're my boys. And if people, I want to give people the same opportunity that I fell into on accident. If you're out there and you're thinking about doing one of these jobs, and we hear it all the time, like, man, I was thinking about becoming a Navy SEAL, and some random dude was like, have you thought about being a PJ or a controller? There's these Air Force chuckleheads that do all this crazy stuff, and they get to work with everybody, and they only go to the places where things are popping off because there's so few of them. Man, like, why wouldn't you want to get the information out there where the people are? They're not watching NASCAR necessarily. We spend a ton of money on 90s era advertising as the DoD. But it's like, where are the kids at? They're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, they're on all the other social media sites, right? And I think we saw that we were missing the mark on a lot of these things, and people have big ideas and they're like, we need a TV commercial. It's like, why? We can afford to air it once, you know, and how many people does that really reach? And is that really the audience that we're looking for? So it's like a combination of things of being passionate about the community, helping the Air Force reach the audience that they think that they're trying to reach, and just having a good time with the boys.
Yeah, I think that's cool. The podcast, man, are you guys doing stuff weekly, daily?
So I think, man, like, so Jared, the controller, is a psychopath. We call him GWAT Jared because he's like all gas, no brakes all the time. So he started doing like a daily update thing where I think he takes the news from the day, a quick like 15 to 20 minute, and just goes over it. So there's something I think that drops almost every day. And then we're 2 to 3 episodes per week. I think one of them is usually members only. And those are fun because then we can say whatever we want to say and YouTube doesn't ding us for it. And then, you know, the public ones where we have a lot of guests on and all that other stuff.
Are you guys mainly focused on, you know, Air Force special operations in that community, or are you guys kind of got it broad-based?
We're broad-based. We always come back to our base, the Air Force special warfare stuff. If there's like big changes to the pipeline, if we get a lot of questions about how to train up for it and what to expect and all that other stuff, we will always come back to that. But man, we've had all kinds of crazy people on the podcast, so we definitely branch out.
Yeah, cool. We'll make sure that we put all your stuff down in our description, so you guys can they can find you, find the Ones Ready podcast. And,
sweet.
I've caught a couple of things and seen some stuff on social media. It's pretty fun. Looks like you guys have a good time.
We do.
And then kind of just, you know, closing out on some other things you're working on. I know you're currently working kind of in the human performance arena, helping the Air Force design some stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Man, I'm trying. So I got a job on accident. Like I said, life works out for me. I got a phone call.
I definitely need to hang out with you more.
It's weird. So I have a really good job that pays pretty well that I got on accident. But it's another thing that just falls in line, right? Like I'm super passionate about trying to help the younger folks out, trying to dispel the myths at the same time about like, oh, this young generation. There's a thing that happens when everybody gets older and we all want to be like, we were the best or something, or it was harder when I went through, or I was a squared away soldier, sailor, airman, Marine when I was an E2. You were not. You were just as much of a walking disaster as the rest of us and as the young people now, right? There are some differences, but I don't think it's as big as we make out. Anyway, got the opportunity to go work with on some of the Air Force stuff for the conventional Air Force, like basic training and some of the other things. Get to talk to young people, get to work on training. Get to wear regular clothes and still talk to people with stars and birds and stripes. So it's a really good time. And trying to not only pass on my knowledge, but I work with a lot of wicked smart people and trying to make the training as efficient and value-based as possible. Like make it worthwhile, make being an airman mean something. I think if I had to like distill down my personal goal for what we're doing, that's what it is make being in the Air Force mean something.
Do you find it like being invigorating around like a younger generation and trying to help like mold them? And
yeah,
it's got to be like fun. Young
people are awesome, man. Like, you know, all of us, like, it's fun because we can talk about all the things we used to do and all of our hustles and all of our investments. Like I said, but like, dude, young people they got all the energy and they got different perspectives. They're at a different time in their life. It's fun to be around the people. Like, I'll tell people before they join the pipeline, like, man, I am not jealous of your age. I'm not jealous of like your runtime, whatever. The only thing I'm jealous of is you are about to go through such intense growth in such a short period of time that you can't replicate any other way. You're going to meet your best friends that you've ever met in the world. Like you're going to be like the same, but completely different on the other side of this journey. And like that transformation, I mean, you can't pay for it. You can't buy it. You have to go in there and you have to earn it. And that's the thing. That's the goodness where the young people have all that opportunity and capacity for that transformational change in that short period of time, and they have all that laid out in front of them, and it's exciting to be able to like be older and look back and see that they're about to go through that, and talk them through it.
Yeah, that's really cool. How do you apply special operations principles to conventional training?
It's all the same stuff. You just have to right size it. Like the better your physical performance connects to your mental performance. Repetition breeds, everything, right? Like if you don't, you have to go through things. You have to, up your stress a little bit and recover. Up it a little bit more, recover. Up a little bit more, recover. Right? It's all the same principles. It's just right sizing it for the audience that you have. But like the way that we do training is a good thing for everybody. Finding out what you're made of, find out where your limits are, if you find them. Stressing people out a little bit and forcing them to really push past their perceived boundaries of what they're capable of, and finding out who they are in a stressful environment is good for everybody. Right sizing a little bit and for physical capabilities and expectation management and all that other stuff, but the principles are all the same.
Now that you're helping train the next generation and have a platform through your podcast, how do you make sure Q and Robbie's sacrifices aren't forgotten? And I know they were Army guys, but I know it's still like, I can see it when we talk, and even when we talked off camera, like I still know it's ingrained like deep down in your military core.
Yeah, I mean it's touchy. I never want to, like, I don't make like an Instagram post on their anniversaries or anything. Like I'm not gonna forget. My job is to be the best person that I can possibly be and have all these experiences and to pass it on to the next generation. But, like at the end of the day, it's like, what are we all here for? And they're a constant reminder of why we do what we do, the risks that we're willing to take, the consequences that could happen while we reach for something greater than ourselves. And I think, we could all die in a car accident tomorrow. Or we could go and try to do something almost impossible, and we might die doing that. Which one would you prefer? And they died doing something almost impossible. That becoming a SOWT is not easy. And it's not like Q is like a well-known person, but man, like he was one of the best humans I ever met in my life. He didn't have to be there. He was smart enough to not have to be there, but like he felt that conviction. And even on days when I don't feel that conviction, like you got to do it because Q would have done it, and Robbie got the Medal of Honor, and, he was like a young, crazy dude that like wanted to go out there, became a Green Beret, which is like an almost impossible, like statistically almost impossible, right? We talk about this all the time on the podcast. And then he was out there pushing, pushing the mission, pushing to go. So like you have that push, that professionalism, all that other stuff. And man, like they I don't think they're looking back at their lives with a lot of regret. They understood the risks. They were grown-ups. They knew what they were doing. And so, we all need to live understanding the risks, knowing what we're doing, and finding a reason to do the things that we know we should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie Miller, saved 7 American soldiers, 15 Afghan army soldiers that day. President Obama said he embodied every virtue at testing point. How do you want people to remember who Robbie was beyond the hero he became that day?
Man, like Robbie didn't start out as the hero, like he was a good kid, I'm sure. And but like, just like a lot of people out there maybe listening right now, like, do you feel that itch to go do something? Like I call it the itch. I don't know what anybody else calls it, but like he felt it, and he put himself through the training so that when that moment came, he didn't hesitate, and he could live up to the legacy that came before him, and he could embody those virtues of what it means to be a Green Beret, what it means to be a special operations guy. And it doesn't mean that he was without flaws. It doesn't mean that he didn't struggle through parts of training. It didn't mean that he was like an exceptional human being, beyond like what most people are capable of if they really want to. It just means that he wanted it more. And I think that's what it comes down to. Like, and when the chips fall, like that's what the community does. Like there are very few stories of guys breaking under pressure. And he definitely lived up to that moniker of being unbreakable.
Yeah, thanks for that. For the guys listening who are considering Air Force Special Operations, what would you tell them?
Just quit now. You're not going to make it.
Push.
Drop. That's a funny thing. Like you lose your instructor voice, like you're like almost comic instructor voice that you adopt. Man, if you want to do it. If it's one of those things that I've come around on a few different things over the years. If you feel the itch, don't deny it. Just do it. The first day is today. It's a lifestyle change. It's not. Don't get sucked into these. Hey, you can become a different person in 3 months following this program. It's like maybe you should set some realistic expectations and think about a year out or 2 years out, because you're going to have to maintain that over time. But at the end of the day, it's like if you feel that pull, if you feel that itch, if you think that you want to do something almost impossible, then what are we talking about? Why are you asking me questions? Why are you hitting me up on Instagram? You know, it's funny because I'll get questions from guys like that haven't even started anything yet. And I'm like, we don't even have a context for a conversation. If you're like, I've been training for 2 years and I've learned all these lessons and I have a very specific question about something and the question shows me that you've put in some work, I'll answer that question. You know what I mean? But like, just don't deny yourself the opportunity to, to live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. What does it really take to succeed in that world?
Discipline. We talk about the circle, right? Inspiration, which can come from like a YouTube video or whatever, or a movie where you're like, man, I like that special operations stuff. I watched Black Hawk Down and those dudes are amazing. I want to be like that. And then you have your motivation, which lasts a couple weeks. But what do you do after that? Most people just fall off the wagon and they give up on their dreams, or they talk themselves out of it. That's one of the things that drives me really nuts, when people talk themselves out of it, or assign labels to themselves like, that's not me, I'm not that kind of person. You're just going to live in regret forever. But finding that discipline, finding that willpower to wake up every day and do the things that you don't want to do, like that is the lifestyle. It's funny because as you go through your career, like I remember deploying with like the Green Berets, and the first fob was pretty crappy. The second fob was a lot nicer, but their camp on Kandahar was really nice and the food was good. And I'm like, oh man, things just get better as you move up the tiers. Man, you go work with some of those other guys though, further up the tier line, and they're like living like animals. Like it's not comfortable. Nothing's permanent, right? Because they're always on the go and they're always in and out. And so like, it was funny because when I went to go work with those guys on a deployment, I'm like, man, like the food is probably going to be great. And you kind of expect everything to go up. It does not. Like, they're just like, we're just here for the mission and that's it. They're so focused on that nothing else matters. And that's the lifestyle, is doing stuff that you don't want to do all the time.
How has the community, at least the Air Force Special Operations community, evolved since you came in?
I mean, my career field has come a long way. And I think I was very lucky to have a small part in some of that transformation. But I think now we have an opportunity with being out of the whole GWAT thing and moving into like the near peer pacing, whatever environment that we're all calling it today. The Air Force has a real opportunity to kind of lead forward instead of just being, the 911 call for everybody and just providing air power. When it comes to your cyber and your air power and the special operations guys, and kind of putting that all together and be able to lead from the front and at least be with the folks that are leading from the front for that. We have a real opportunity to get there, and I think we're moving in that direction.
That's awesome. Kind of towards the end here, what's next for Trent Seegmiller?
Moving into your guest room.
Let's do it, bro. Snuggles for everybody.
I don't know if this came through, but I'm not much of a planner. I just do whatever kind of comes my way, and it all tends to work out. I want to keep working on the stuff I'm doing for my regular job. I want to keep working on the media side. I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you do have kids, right? And as we get older, we start thinking about our kids, and your kids are starting to get up. Like, what do you want your legacy? Like, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
I just want my kids to be good people. I want them to after I'm dead and gone and in the ground, I don't want them to be like, man, that dude could have been so much better. They will. They should probably say that I could have done a lot better. But I want them to remember, I try to not create, but like savor the moments where hopefully they remember that, like, Dad loved them. and I spent time with them and I tried. That's all that really matters. Like the rest of it, they're going to go through my stuff and they'll find some things and they'll put some pieces together, and that's fine. That's cool. But that's not what really matters to me. You know, I want them to feel some, I do want them to feel some expectations of the family name, because that helped me a lot. But also I want them to feel that full support of that same name.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last question, man, before we close out. I know your wife has kind of been your steady. We've talked about her a lot, especially, you know, on your podcast prep and even in our personal conversations. Yeah. Anything you'd like to tell her?
Well, I'm a mess without my wife. You know, she's been through a lot, and it's weird doing things like this where I'm talking about me, which makes me, I'm so comfortable doing this. I love this. My favorite subject is myself. But like it forces you to reflect, right? Like it's like weddings, retirements, those types of things. It forces a reflection, and I don't think I fully appreciated all the things that she did and she went through while I was on team. And it's easy to be, especially in your younger years, like you have to be a little narcissistic on team to think that you're capable of these things and to go out and do it and to think that you're the man and you're making the difference and all this stuff, and then just expect your wife or your girlfriend to hold it all together back home. So, man, like I just the greatest accomplishment of my career is still being married and getting into retirement. We've been retired well over a year now, and we're still doing our thing. I will say one of the best things I did, and here's like if anybody's looking for the one good thing I did surrounding my retirement, is my wife and I took that whole summer off, and we didn't have jobs. And we just traveled.
Did she retire as well, or?
Yeah, she retired like 2 months before I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we took that whole summer off with the kids. It was cool because we're driving out to Vegas to meet up with our parents, and we're like, when do we have to be back? And it's like, whenever we want, you know?
We made it, bro.
And just like embracing that freedom and embracing that time together and getting to know each other again without all the stress that's involved. And it's not just like a logistical relationship all the time. Was really, really good. And we're I'm very happy that it all worked out. We'll see. I don't know. I hope she's happy.
Well, as we close out, man, I just want to, you know, personally say thanks for coming on the show. I've, you know, started to watch your show a little bit more, and especially really just get, you know, as our podcast grows too, you know, just really opening up the Air Force kind of spectrum, if you will. I was ignorant to not what you guys did. I mean, obviously I know we need an Air Force, and I know you guys had these capabilities, and I have interfaced with the Air Force in the past, but it was a new topic and it was new for our channel, and it was really cool. And I hope to talk to, I know we have another Air Force TAC P coming on who's a military free fall instructor. And then
TAC Ps are the worst.
Yeah. That came from the weather, dude.
I can't be serious.
Yeah. But you almost did it with a straight face. So it's cool. So yeah, man, I just want to say thanks, man. I've enjoyed like, you know, getting to know you, and I said before, you're a fun guy to hang out with. So I look forward to seeing, you know, kind of your growth and where you guys taking that podcast and some of your future projects, dude. So I appreciate it.
You're gonna go through the moon, man. You're doing good work, and I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Hey, for all you out there that are listening, dude, we wanted to say, you know, thanks as we just continue to grow and get better. I just want to thank our sponsor, Alpha Country Nutrition. I've been really using their supplements. I know there's this misconception that, you know, just because I have a sponsor, like, oh, you only are talking about their supplements because they're sponsoring you. No, I actually take them, and I was taking those supplements and actually asked them if they wanted to sponsor us long before, because I like what they're doing. I personally take the creatine and the electrolytes. They just dropped a new electrolyte supplement that's awesome. My kids take it. So if you use code Vanguard 20, you'll get 20% off. So there's the plug. And then all you guys out there, man, it would really help us, especially on iTunes and Spotify, if you guys could follow us. It helps push the algorithm as far as, you know, the iTunes stuff too. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, you know, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment. I read all of them, and, you know, we're definitely considering some new projects based on some of the info that you guys have suggested. So you can follow us on social media, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you guys stay safe out there. And if you can't be safe, be violent out here.